Hello. Hello and welcome. Give me one moment, y'all. Welcome to the AstroPub. Welcome to Office Hours. This is a live stream where, it's a live stream. We talk about Star Citizen, content, news, lore, all sorts of things like that. Just kind of a hangout and talk. I don't know why it's saying Mariah Fury started. We haven't done any giveaways. I gotta turn that off. How y'all doing? Hey, Shinobi, how you doing? Hold on, get the last little bit on. All right, let's do this. Hey, hello, welcome. My name is Paul. This is the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of the galaxy. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We got a good one for you. How you doing? Locke, Wise Guy, Shinobi. Let me turn off that giveaway. I think I accidentally turned on the timer for giveaways. I did.
You can take away my spaceship.
Spaceship.
You can take away my space suit.
Suit.
You can even take away my space lasers. But you can never,
ever
take away my space game.
Digdug just resubscribed for 21 months. I am thankful for all the work that you do to keep us well informed.
Thank you so much, 89 Dig Dug, for that 21 months. You were a very important pupper, very impressive, a very pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers and chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. All right. Hey, XX. I'm glad you did. So I'm gonna start by with a disclaimer by saying I don't discount, nor do I want to belittle the folks at the Pipeline, Hater, and why am I blanking on her name? It's been a long day. Hater and Arya. And the rest of the whole team there. Here's the thing. There's been some leaks, and I don't want to say they're not important, but they're not really leaks. I'll go over them real quickly, and just so, because it's going to be brought up anyways. It's a problem. Even though I'm bringing it up now, people are going to be like, "Did you hear this?" So the only thing that's kind of not a straight up, like obvious is that they're going to be doing some kind of PTU session for 4.0. Kind of like a testing for meshing with PTU was the leak. That doesn't sound that does sound likely, but it's also coming hot off the heels of what they basically already said a couple of days ago during the Post-mortem. They didn't specifically say it, but they did say, they did imply that they're going to be doing that. Because I would really suggest people reading the Post-mortem, because it's actually a very in-depth thing, and I'll give you the long and short of it, which is CIG has learned their lesson to not release a patch that is potentially entirely busted to the live servers. And so, as a result, that's why you're not getting 4.0 this year. Because CIG is not willing to rush a patch out at the end of the year and then have it be busted while they're gone off on break, and then have no live alternative. It's weird. It's really long right here. I thought I shaved it, but apparently not. It was really weird. Sounds like excuse to again slow progress.
You can take away my
Not really. Were you here for 318?
space suit.
Suit.
You can even take away my space lasers. But you can
Never.
ever
Ever.
take away my space game.
Come on, why aren't you working? There you go.
The first tasty just resubscribed for 29 months. Well, hello there.
Hey, 29 months. Thank you so much for that. That first tasty. You are a very important public, very impressive Pennsylvania pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. How you doing, first tasty? Nah, it's not really an excuse. It tracks. Because you wouldn't want 4.0 in 318 style. I don't want 4.0 in 318 style. I had accepted that was going to be the case because CIG was just going to plow ahead no matter what. But it seems like CIG is like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. How's school year going, my dad? It's okay. It's rough, but it's okay. It's not like bad. It's just I need a break already. I've only been teaching for over a month, and I'm like, I need a fucking break. It's not even the kids. It's just all the BS. You know, the paperwork and such. But basically, everyone and their mother has been saying this game is plagued by people who think the graphics matter. They do matter, but they need to just put placeholders in to get the game loops there. Neo. Okay. Here's the problem, and I'm not trying to belittle you or other people who believe these sorts of things. I'm just trying to put it in perspective. There are lots and lots of people who say, fuck adding new content, make the game function. Right? And there's a lot of those people. And then there's people who say, fuck, make the game function, give me new content. Show me progress, show me advancement. And the problem is sometimes those people are the same people. So at the end of the day, it's more like, okay, like it's just gonna happen the way that CIG happens. It's not gonna be one way or the other. How's Void Crew? It's good. It's very good. It's very fun. I have to play more of it because I wasn't able to do it on Wednesday. So, I mean, nothing I'm going to say is going to change your mind on that. You came in with that mind made up. You just go right on trucking and with that opinion. I disagree with your opinion, but that's fine. Because really what matters is CIG. I personally want CIG to put stuff in too, but I also understand that CIG wants to make money because they need to keep the doors open. And to make money, they need to make sure that the game is playable and fun. And making the game playable and fun requires it to be stable. And it's not stable when they're shoving new technology in. How's school? Do you hate your students yet? No, I love my students. I always love my students. Kids are the least worst part about schools. I doubt they would. They will, but I kind of hope they let you secure dead bodies in the cargo grid like the ISC. Better if it's in-gap players too. Holograph plating surfing. That'd be kind of funny. I doubt they would too. Yeah. But going back to the leaks, it's the parents aren't as bad. The problem is that especially with parents is that the parents you want to be involved in their kids' lives aren't. And the kids that are like doing great have really involved parents, which is great, but sometimes it's over involved. So like, well, my child has a 98. It's like, yes, because they earned a 98. Why not 100? Because because they screwed up on this. They need to fix this. And it's not even that bad. The real problem is paperwork. The amount of paperwork you have to do as a teacher is nuts. Which is not what you sign up to do, but yeah, students go to bureaucracy is bad. How am I finding 320 PTU? It's okay. It's better than I thought it would be, but let's go through some of these leaks again, just because it's this. But basically, that's a reasonable response based off of the post-mortem, which seems to indicate the CIG is, again, going to favor stability over new tech, but they're still going to put a lot of new tech in PTU and test the shit out of it in PTU. You run mental health school, counseling, business for charter schools, a lot of paperwork. Oh yeah, oh yeah. The second one was there's a sort of inside Squadron 42 update, not real name, just comparing to ISC at SitCon, interviews, gameplay footage. Anyone who's been paying attention to the monthly reports or to seeing the patterns, like my tinfoil hat ass has been noticing that since December. Like, it was pretty obvious that the CIG was telegraphing that from a mile away. Thank you, Luminary Maria.
My space suit. You can even take away my space lasers. But you can never,
Magic Pub Man.
take away my space game.
Askabar_1 just resubscribed for 23 months. Howdy, Magic Pub Man.
Thank you so much for Askabar for that 23 months of support. And thank you for that $10 Canadian, Luna. How you doing? You are all very important pubbers, very impressive pistons, very pedestrian. This is your salt, your drinking shot. Blah, blah, blah. Your three's one trick night. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. All right. You called Squadron 42 release date at SitCon, and I'll die in that sword. I'm pretty certain they won't have a specific date, but I'm pretty sure they'll have like a monthly or like a quarter 4 or whatever, a quarter 3. Yeah, we're gonna watch ISC here because there's a lot of good information on it as well. But I'm going through some of the leaks on the pipeline. So, and again, this isn't meant to belittle or bring them down. It's just explaining that a lot of this stuff is stuff that was already been talked about by CIG in non-concrete terms, of course, but stuff that has been, you know, pretty well telegraphed. Squadron 42 is approaching the content/feature complete stage. This does not contradict what we said about Squadron 42 in general. That is a pretty game with less gameplay. I hate to I hate to do this, but it's a Chris Roberts game. That's how Chris Roberts games are. It's like being like, what? I picked up this game called Metal Gear Solid that people were really interested in. Why are there so many goddamn cinematics? Expect a lot of cinematics in Squadron 42. But it's also something that has also been very well telegraphed over the last couple of months, especially with the flat-out use of beta last month for their monthly report. Just being like, yeah, we're entering beta stage for animations. It's been for the last 6 months, really. CIG's Squadron 42 monthly reports have been filled with polish this, post-alpha work that, beta that, you know. Yeah. Hey, Odysseus, thank you. Thank you, Luna Maria. So yeah, it's something that's obvious. Now, it's also important to remember that beta is where you start to see, in terms of development, is where you start to see the refinement of the gameplay. So you take the game that exists and you figure out, you know, like what time of day do you want to have this battle take place? What do you want the lighting at? How many people do you want here? And those sorts of things. And to be quite honest, which is going to, this might sound flippant, but it's something that it's important to note, is that the gameplay of Squadron 42 is just Star Citizen. What you have in Star Citizen is what you have in Squadron 42. Sometimes Squadron 42 is 3 to 6 months ahead of Star Citizen, but like the flight gameplay is Star Citizen. The FPS combat gameplay is Star Citizen. The only thing that's completely different between Star Citizen and Squadron 42 is the AI. That's it. Beta in my day was feature complete and bug fixes and games changed. That's sort of changed over time. The problem is that alpha and beta never really mean that much. And yeah, that's Squadron 42 though. It's reading its content and feature complete. It's gonna have a lot of content. It's gonna have a lot of changes to how much gameplay, how much like the flow of gameplay, and all those other things going through. Almost certainly that's going to be the case going forward as they reach that full beta stage. Hideo Kojima loves cinematics. That's why there's so many Metal Gear Solid story progression, and that's kind of the same thing with Chris Roberts' games. It's mostly about the story and the characters and that kind of stuff. That's his thing. Chris Roberts' thing. Sort of. I've kind of stopped using PubCoin for a while. The sound effects should be working. AI story and cinematics. Oh, and Luke Skywalker, yeah. It's hard to tell. Right, there's one gameplay in Squadron 42. Combat, ships, FPS, stealth, just combat. You're the UEN fighter pilot. What are the gameplay people expecting? I mean, that's the thing. Is that, like, it's hard to say exactly what Arya is mentioning in terms of not the with less gameplay. Very pretty game with less gameplay. Because it seems, at least to me, and maybe I'm wrong with this one, she's implying that there's just not a lot of content in Squadron 42, which is not from my experience from seeing all of the missions and stuff like that. It's just not going to be very diverse. It's going to be gun gameplay, it's going to be ship gameplay, it's going to be stealth, it's going to be branching missions and those sorts of things. So, hi. No. I want you to go fuck off and die. There you go. I got him. So, yeah. Hey, Dibley. Interesting that the Star Citizen credit has been removed from all actors in IMDb. Probably because a lot of those actors were in Squadron 42 and not Star Citizen. That was probably added before the split between Squadron 42 and Star Citizen's game packages, but... Hey, Space Games. Sorry, I had to ban a scammer. Someone was trying to sell us followers. It was just follow bots and stuff like that. How's your Warhammer hobby been treating you since school teaching sped back up? I have not painted as much, though I have. See if I can get. The Orc Boys have been put away because I'm going to use them at some point, but... yeah, my own custom chapter. All right. But basically, it's hard to really. I would say it's difficult for anyone at this point to really nail down exactly what Squadron 42 is going to look like. Probably even the people who are working in Squadron 42, because the way that I understand how it's being developed is you have an area, and that area is the mission area. And you have a mission goal or multiple mission goals in that area, and your job is to just accomplish that goal. Now, that area can be a base on a moon, or that can be an entire, like, orbit, you know, or a region of a planet. It's really entirely up to what the mission designers want to do. And so the content that they put inside that mission is really variable and up to the designers. They already have the AI. They just want to say, oh, maybe we should add more AI here, or, you know, a different encounter there, or change up how the encounters function in here in these areas. So, yeah, it's gonna look like Squadron, or it's gonna look like Wing Commander. If you've played Wing Commander, that's what it's gonna look like. It's a modern version of Wing Commander. That's what it is. But it's not going to be open world or anything like that. You're a soldier on a ship. Yeah, what exactly is the story with Unity? I don't know the full story. All I know is that Unity said that starting on January 1st of next year, they're going to start charging developers a download fee, where, like, every time someone downloads one of your games, if you've made a certain amount of money, they're going to start charging developers extra money for doing that. So it's just a giant clusterfuck. It's not Freelancer 2.0. No, that's not Star Citizen. It's more Star Citizen. That's not Squadron 42. But the idea that it's a very pretty gameplay with less pretty game with less gameplay seems more of I would disagree based off of my own kind of looking at the game. For those of you who don't know, who are newer to the channel, hi, I'm a dumbass and I've spoiled myself on Squadron 42 like 3 times. I've heard most of the audio files from Squadron 42. I've seen the mission briefings, and most of it is by accident. I swear to God, it was by accident. So, generally speaking, I know the plot twists. I know the general story. I'm still interested in seeing how it'll play out. But based off of my experience with it, that doesn't seem to be the case, unless people are expecting Star Citizen, the single-player game. Because it's not going to be Star Citizen, the single-player game. Never was. So. Hey, Velocity. But yeah, the fact that it's featuring, it's approaching content / feature complete stage does track with what the monthly reports have been saying for a long time. And then the last one is CIG's meeting with companies to discuss distribution of Squadron 42 physical copies on platforms other than PC. Similar to what Cyberpunk 2077 did for its distribution.
You can even take away my
Which...
space lasers.
What?
But you can never, ever take away my space game.
RD Madeira just resubscribed for 28 months.
Thank you so much, RD Madeira, for that 28 months of support. You're a very important pubber, very impressive pisser, very pedestrian. This is your fault. The reason why I drink at night. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. But are we going to have fun? Of course we're going to have fun. Unreal changes a percentage of sales, charges a percentage of sales of any game with Unreal Engine. Sounds like Unity wants some of that action. Unreal does only after a certain point. And They also are willing to pay developers a lot of money to help them with Unreal. So for consoles, yeah, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because there's been no evidence at all of development for consoles. Not that I'm saying that consoles aren't that CIG wouldn't develop for consoles, because I've said for a long time that I'd expect Squadron 42 to be on consoles. It's just gonna happen. The question is more when and how. And the fact that they said something like similar to what Cyberpunk 2077 did for its distribution makes me go, what? What the fuck did Cyberpunk 2077 do for its distribution? Because I don't know what the fuck that means. So Squadron 42 is kind of a spiritual successor to Wing Commander. Yes, that's explicitly what Squadron 42 is a spiritual successor to Wing Commander. Let you go into bed, Odysseus. But yeah, that's literally what it was designed to be. Which may be the reason why Arya is talking the way it is. I don't know. But a lot of that stuff does not seem okay. This is what they're saying. Was that Squadron 42 is an overtime mode. Developers are working hard overtime in some instances to shift towards an eventual release in near one year in the future. Development has been described as steady, but confidence in the final project is mixed. It's described as a pretty game, but lacking in gameplay when compared to Starfield. What? That's a really weird comparison.
Hourglass Mage _ just resubscribed for 16 months. The best part of my Friday morning. Love your work, Paul.
Thank you so much there, Hourglass Mage. You are a very important pupper, very impressive pisser, very new pedestrian. Shots and cheers, JL. Shots and cheers. That's just one of those things that makes me go, what? Oh, the music, who is that? Oh, that music is by MC Lars. Well, it's just a weird comparison, which is, and it's done specifically as a comparison by the developers, which makes me go, what? According to the leaks, it's that the developers are comparing it to Starfield, which is like, what? Do you think 2 unreleased variants of the dropship and a medical version of our favorite turtle, the Terrapin? Possibly. Would CIG be willing to pay Sony what they would have to pay to get Squadron 42 on PlayStation? I doubt it. No, it's just maybe they will outsource the porting. That's would be my guess. It's just there's a lot of stuff in here which doesn't seem to jive with my experience and with the people I know who work at CIG. I don't know how to put this in a way that's delicate, but I've heard a lot of shit from CIG employees because some CIG employees don't know how to shut the fuck up. And I've heard things I'm not supposed to, seen things I'm not supposed to. So I know information. I've just shut the fuck up about it because I like doing what I'm doing currently. And a lot of that, some of it kind of makes sense, but some of it also makes me go like, I'm sort of understand how CIG talks to each other, and some of it doesn't seem to mesh with like how CIG talks with each other. Some of it does sound like bitter employees or ex-employees and how they would describe situations that I know of. Like, it's pretty fucking obvious that there are management issues at CIG. And I don't mean that as in the way of like, well, they don't understand how to do project management. It's more that they don't know how to fucking talk to each other internally. That's not ever been in contention. It's been a big problem with like everything at CIG. And it has a lot to do with the fact that CIG is like 1,000+ people. You don't fucking talk with 1,000+ people. It's damn near impossible to coordinate that number of people in any kind of cohesive way. Hey, Victoria. I'm not saying things I can't say. These are things that like are pretty obvious to the outside world, I think. Question: why no Jolly Roger skins for the Pirate Pirate League? There's only one Jolly Roger skin. It's for a ship that pirates don't use because it's slow as fuck and has no real use in pirate ship. Don't ask me, man. Icy's looking great, yeah. To be honest, Star Citizen isn't even in the same time frame as Starfield. Star Citizen is years away. Starfield's already out. They're different approaches to the same problem, though. I feel the current drought of major advances in development is really reminiscent of the wait for 3.0. Kind of. There's just a lot of stuff in there that makes me, I'm not going to say doubt, more of put into perspective that I wouldn't personally doubt that the people that are reaching out to the Leaks Discord or reaching out to Arya and those folks are probably disgruntled employees, mad about management, mad about other things, or generally don't feel like part of the company culture or whatever, because it's not the first time that's happened at CIG and wouldn't be the first time it happened at a fucking game studio. Happens a lot. because game dev is weird and can attract some weird folks. So, and there's at least one ex-employee, and so yeah. Oh, we haven't watched ISC yet. No, we will watch it. But I wanted to go over that because a lot of that is just like, yeah, most of this is sort of like kind of hinted at, like a 4.0 PTU sort of thing, because they seem to be very much worried about stability for 318 because of what 318 hit them. They got really, really pissed off. I'm guessing what happened was 318 came out, was an absolute dumpster truck of bullshit. And it just knocked out any momentum they had in terms of sales and player numbers for months. And they're barely pulling back to what they were before, right as, you know, Starfield released and a bunch of other things have been coming out. So they're really, what is it? Not punch drunk. It's like, they're gun shy. They don't want to like just do it again, all over again within a year of them doing the exact same thing. So they're taking it slow because of that. We've had persistence, even if it was difficult. There was still work to do. I think it's not. I don't think we're in the void of waiting for 3.0. Not really, yeah. I'm still thinking the earliest would be June of next year, probably more like October of next year, because anything that can be delayed to the Q4 patch or Q3 patch will be delayed to the Q3 patch. But I could be wrong. And there was another thing that was interesting, like the mention of Rastar. Rastar has been mentioned multiple times outside of this as being a tool that has had issues and is actively delayed the implementation of specific things. Oh, almost certainly. It's not the next patch, Major Sinkhole. We already know that. It's 3. They already announced 3.21, so that's going to be coming out at the end of the year. Honestly, think 4.0 will be seen the earliest in 2025. Nah, probably sooner than that. It really depends on if they get those, if they actually have any kind of testing in there. Nah, I mean, they usually don't like to release major patches towards the end of the year because that's when they all go on vacation. So Q3 patch, which is September, October, is usually their big patch year. Just this year, 318 kind of gut punched them, so they haven't been able to catch back up. Just financial attack holding stuff back. Devs don't want to have to redo work after PES or server meshing and thus prioritize simple things like stuff outside like AC. Feels like we all knew a year ago with that with PES this year was going to suck and everyone's like, surprise Pikachu. Well, it's mostly problems on Chris's fault because there was always this message, even at the beginning of this year, the message was the road to 4.0, that we're going to be getting updates on 4.0 and 4.0 is going to happen. And we haven't gotten shit. We have heard one thing about server meshing in January, and then they were fucking quiet for fucking 9 months. And this week is the first time we even had a mention of server meshing directly outside of hints during monthly reports. So. Hey Paul, please tell me that I misheard you or I'm missing some contents. Did you I hear you say a few years ago that viewers aren't interested in watching Starfield content. They should more or less get bent. Please tell me I'm missing something. You are missing something. I was saying if you're only here for Star Citizen content, I don't care. If you're here for me, if you're here to hear me talk and content, feel free. But if you're here like, oh, I only watch Paul because of Star Citizen, or like to Star Citizen, I'm here for I'm here to do content that I want to do. And there's plenty of other content creators out there that just do Star Citizen content. And if that's all you care about, have a good day. I don't give a shit. I said, good day. Yes. That's basically, and it's going to suck because it's, I know I'm going to lose people who've been around here for a very long time, but that's just how it is. That's fine. You can watch me on YouTube. It's fine. It's like, the issue is there's so many people I know who are following me just because of Star Citizen content. And it sucks to watch that number go down such a significant amount because I'm not playing Star Citizen. And it's not just Starfield. It's any game that's not Star Citizen. I get a lot of people like, well, I'm not interested in that game. It's like, cool. So you're only watching to watch Star Citizen. I'm not even like the best Star Citizen creator. Dracon, don't worry about it. Somebody was asking a question about a statement I made earlier about like, I'm not really here for people who are only here for Star Citizen. I like Star Citizen. It's still my main game, but yeah, everyone's wanting me to watch ISC. All right, let's watch ISC. I've been here for almost an hour, so. Nope, I got it. Where are you? There we go.
In looking at the way that our...
Thank you, Matt Alchemist. All right. It's a pretty good ISC, I think. I've already watched it, so.
In looking at the way that our teams are structured, especially after the Montreal merger with Turbulence, we decided to combine USPU as well as Montreal PU into NAPU.
NAPU stands for North American Persistent Universe.
NAPU is the...
NAPU. 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 NAPU.
regroupment of 3 different cities.
In order to kind of create a super team that gives them a lot of coding firepower as well as design firepower.
NAPU is really a collection of people from Austin, from LA, from Montreal.
We're all just getting together to try to make some amazing new features for Star Citizen PU.
So that includes physicalized cargo, in-game shops, and newer features that we're looking into, such as exploration.
We're working on mostly currently cargo and things regarding that. We recently finished work on the Hull C.
NAPU was formed in order to work on larger feature sets for Star Citizen, so that those features have the time and resources required to deliver them at the quality.
Thoughts on the infamous Zeus M2? Is it the RSI answer to the Cutlass? I have no clue. Like that's another thing that I'm not going to go into back to that whole thing, but like that's another thing that makes me go super suspicious. People are like, oh, the Zeus M2. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, they've mentioned Zeus is going to be a thing that's here. Like they want to do like historical ships, and Zeus has been hinted at many times. But I've been burned so many times with the idea that CIG is going to release a historical ship of the past that I'm like, nah, I don't believe it. I don't care. That just seems like a super wish fulfillment sort of thing rather than an actual thing.
Level that we want to see. NAPU includes several engineers, production, and QA.
We have 6 different programmers, actually. We have a few that are in LA, and then we have a few more in Austin.
Right now that includes James, Mitch.
Would I buy the Zeus Mark II? Of course I would. If it was based off of an actual historical, like the actual Zeus from lore, sure.
Kevin, myself, as well as Preston on production, and Alicia in QA. Did I say everyone?
We have two, Mathieu and Emma, that are here in Montreal.
Yes, I think I got them all.
So at this point, a lot of what we're working on is still in the design phase.
I would say in the technical design and planning phase, but yeah.
There's a lot of TDD, like technical design document going on, preparing the feature and all the parts. There's a lot of work in that area.
The North American Persistent Universe team are currently at the forefront of the next major evolution of cargo, hangar, and related inventory systems. And as their work begins to enter the PU over the next 3 to 6 to 9 months and beyond, all building to what we hope will collectively become a true cargo career, we here at ISC, well, we didn't want to wait to begin telling the story. As much like the engineering and resource management systems of the EU-PU team, this work promises to be utterly transformative to the overall Star Citizen experience. So these next 2 shows, well, they're going to be a bit different than normal. That's because we're not going to have anything to dazzle your eyeballs with just yet. Yes, the ISC gameplay capture team, as great as they are, well, we're going to let them take a break this week, as we let members of the NAPU team take you through the design and intention of their current work in a 2-part special we're calling Design Brief Cargo Career.
The focus of NAPU in the foreseeable future is going to include features such as freight elevators and instance hangars, as well as persistent hangars. Freight elevators are one of the biggest changes to cargo that we've seen in the entire history of the game. They bring the feature from being something that's somewhat magical to something that's physical. It adds friction, but also a gameplay experience around hauling cargo in our game. This one addition, I think, is going to change not just cargo, but also the way that we interact with everything.
So NAPU is 10-ish people? Yeah, there's not a lot of people in the North American teams. I would say probably Montreal is the biggest team out of all of them, because a lot of, for instance, Austin's team is dedicated to the servers and like networking. Like that's their specialty. LA is mostly focused on ships, and I think it's focused on the administration. And the Montreal team was probably the biggest, which was dealing a lot with like tools and other aspects of like of gameplay. The bigger MPU teams is the European teams. The EU PU teams are like, they've actually have 2 of them. Like that's how big they are. They have 2 that are working on it, because like most of CIG's employees work in Manchester. So
everything else in the game, inventory, player items, purchases, ship items. It's a fundamental change to how players are going to deal with the world. Freight elevators are going to be implemented as an access point inside of player hangars,
where the player can interface with cargo to get it ready to put it on their ship.
And you'll use a kiosk to interact with the freight platform in order to call things up from your inventory or to put things into your inventory. The way that the freight elevators are going to be implemented is actually using the same technology as we use for the cargo grids in the ships. Players will be using their tractor beams in order to detach things from the platform and then haul it onto their ship, and vice versa. They'll be using the tractor beams in order to detach things from the cargo grids and put them onto the freight platform. I think that this is going to make the whole experience feel a lot more tactile and organic, as well as there's a lot of fun and interesting gameplay around just how you stack things, how you sequence them, take a group of people, decide how you're actually going to load things together. It's like that time that you go and move with a U-Haul and your friends, you got to figure out where to put the couch, but in-game. It's going to be figuring out where do we take that big box, where do we put the ship items, where do we put the guns, and try to sequence it in a way that's both optimal as well as, I think, fun.
We don't just want to have the feature, exist in a void. Really what we want to try and do is work with the whole scope of the game to support cargo. So this is something for outposts, for UGF, where we want to look at how do we really take advantage of cargo in these spaces.
However, it does mean that the outposts will also support the same manual loading process that the hangars and those other locations use.
So not only are you participating in cargo, in a hangar, in a station, but out in the verse as well, at an outpost.
And while freight elevators will be available...
it makes me sad that CIG seems to be moved into the game where tractor beam is the answer to move everything. So I hate to say this, but they've been working the shit out of rope gameplay. There's a lot of rope gameplay, and like or at least a lot of rope tech that's being developed, and that's probably going to end up being stuff like forklifts and cranes and all those sorts of things. It's just that takes a lot more work than a magic beam go burr. So magic beam go burr is always going to be a thing there. What do you mean the raft suggests otherwise? Oh, we're here for the raft, yeah. Yes, Shibari confirmed, yes. It's actually disturbing how much CIG brings up rope in the monthly reports. It's like, do we need to call somebody? Like this seems like an awfully specific mentions of ropes and like cantilevers and stuff like that.
Throughout locations in the persistent universe, much of the work involved in manually loading and unloading your vehicles will always.
Haven't they always? They've also been talking a shit ton of like the infamous carts that kill everything. They're having AI learn how to use the carts. So it's definitely, and they have the mule, which is itself like a forklift. Yeah, they've got a lot of stuff that are like not just beams.
Always involve your hangars, which presented the team with some unique challenges to address and overcome.
It's going to be hard to rip Magic Bee Go Burr out of player hands once they have it. No, so the one thing you have to understand as well is the game is being developed with this idea of, or like the thing that they're doing right now is the resource system. The resource system is not just for ships. It's for ships. It's for outposts and settlements. It's for buildings. It's for player suits and for equipment. So like your tractor beam is going to have a limited battery life. And like your like temporary emergency one is going to be incredibly emergency. It will not have a shit ton of battery life. So you can use big Magic Beam Go Burr if you have access to battery power, or if you need to do something very fast or only once. But when you start using that, you're going to use resources, even for the ships. So having the other more manual stuff will be available so you don't have to use resources, but it'll take you more time. Trade-offs. That's kind of how CIG develops games. So,
starting with the next iteration of instanced hangars.
Instanced hangars solve a particular problem. How do we have people spending an extended period of time in their hangar loading cargo now that we've added these freight platforms, but also allow the locations to have traffic coming in and out of the landing zones? What we're doing here is decoupling the access to a hangar from the occupancy. And all that really means is that we can dynamically create these hangars at runtime, and they're kind of set aside for players to spend time inside of.
Without getting too much into it, right, you're gonna have a personal space. We're just looking at ways that a lot more players can do this simultaneously.
We don't want to have a big...
So this is actually a pretty big thing, because this is actually something we've been talking about a lot here over the last year or so, which the question is, how the fuck are you going to do hangars? Because as the game scales in size, they have to also, as the game scales in size, they also have to, I'm trying to this. As game scales in size, they're going to have to either make more hangars for people to use and have wait times and more complex ATC systems, or they're going to have to compromise and make disappearing hangars. And so the answer is they're going to make disappearing hangars. So you will get to hangar 2, you'll go in, the doors will close, and somebody else will request landing, and hangar 2 will then open up again, and you won't be there because you'll be in a different instance somewhere tucked away somewhere else in the universe. And then somebody else will go in and they'll get their own little version of hangar 2, which is separate from your version. And then when you're done with what you're doing in Hangar 2, you call to leave, you open the doors, and you leave. So that's effectively the compromise. Is instead of having 4,000 hangars across the planet, you have a lot of hangars, but generally speaking, you're gonna have not unique hangars, you know.
Choke point of everybody trying to load their ships and unload, and all trying to do that in the same space. So we have instance hangars as a way to put you in an area where you can feel comfortable, you can take the time that you want to load or unload your cargo, and really engage in that system the way that you choose.
And so you can actually have your personal space to deal with cargo inside a hangar. And depending on your ship, there'll be different situations and different locations for that.
But the thing with this one is that when you leave, things gonna basically go away.
Once you want to leave, you'll just make a request to ATC, and the hangar will move into place. We'll open up the doors and you'll be able to leave. And then the same thing when landing, you make a request to ATC. The system will allocate the space for you, open the hangar, and you can land. For the players, it will seem seamless, but underneath the hood, the system itself is going to be maintaining a representation of where all the players are, what requirements are needed, without having a bottleneck for players who are actually just trying to play the game otherwise. And then we have persistent hangars. Persistent hangars are kind of an evolution of instant hangars. And really what it is it's our first step towards real player ownership in the game beyond ships.
The cool thing is that you'll be able to put your stuff in it, come back to it, and it's still gonna be there.
It's just whatever the player wants to keep inside their hangar, that's their home. They can just leave them lie around, they can arrange them however they want, be it weapons or cargo or dead corpses or whatever.
Very, very long term. I have no clue of any dates or anything, but you'll be able to customize it and upgrade it so it becomes bigger. You can have bigger ships in them. And maybe at some point even having them like at distant location, you could buy a second one. For now, it's gonna really be on your own location.
It's persistent to you and your character. And you can invite friends to your hangar, you can load up your ship, you can take the haul from your mission, out of your ship and distribute it to your buddies. So persistence of hangars is really important.
This is going to be developed more in the future, and we're going to use the same technology that we're using to build this for other things in the game, such as player hubs. And it's a real, I think, exciting way for the players to feel like they have a more permanent place in the game that they can call their own.
I can't.
So, a couple things we learned there. One, player habs are first. So player habs are going to be the first thing they tackle, and then player persistent hangars will be the second. And we also don't really know how they're going to get your ship out of persistent hangars. I still think the most logical and probably the easiest way, that's the most immersive and also the most the easiest for them to implement, the most immersive and the most streamlined for players, is to have like a launch pad of some kind where you take your ship, you put it on that pad, you go to you call up ATC and say, I've got a ship on my launch pad, I want it to brought to a launch hangar, and it, you just say request a launch, and it'll disappear down like a little hangar, will go and then lower you down, and then a little kind of seal up on top, and it'll disappear, and then it'll get transported to the launch bay. Think like Elite Dangerous does, or a lot of other things do. It's the way that the hangars work in like the 890. It's the way the hangars work in a lot of the Polaris. It's the way the hangars will work in the Odyssey. It's the way the hangars work. It's there's a lot of similar hangars to that already in the game, so it makes a lot of sense, because that's the way of kind of smoke and mirrors moving ships from your long-term storage to launch. So. You said Polaris. I mean, yeah. Frontier was smart. Yeah, well, it's a classic trope. I mean, I can't remember. Is it a Star Wars trope with the whole like landing thing? They took it from actual like carriers with their elevators and stuff like that. But ship to station docking, how will that work? Like it does now? Are you talking about like for loading? I don't know.
Can't help but notice the ISC gameplay capture team snuck some conceptual visualization in there after all. What can I say? They love what they do. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that everything you're hearing about today is the current intention of the design team at the time that we film this. Now, as with all things you see and hear about on any ISC, it's always a work in progress, and may, and often will, continue to evolve as development progresses and concepts are tested. Now, so far in our design brief cargo career, we've talked about how you'll move and store your boxes. So let's find out more about what happens inside those boxes going forward.
With 320, we introduced a new packing system that allows us to use a larger set of box sizes. Right now, that includes...
Here's the problem that I have with this, their instancing. I'm completely fine with them doing this for hangars, habs, and other parts of the game, but it has me really worried. Where will they stop? When they have to? Like, there's no reason for them to not stop. Just as long as they don't have to like a loading screen between the instances, they'll be fine. Which is what server or service or what is it? Server-side object container streaming is. So I don't think you're going to see a situation where you will never be able to access gameplay. Like the reason why they do it for habs, the reason why they do it for hangars and those sorts of things is because those are more private, kind of personal things where people want to have their private personal locations and those sorts of like areas. That's pretty typical for most MMOs, and it makes a lot of sense for the limited space you have with the just sheer size of like millions of players, because you have to account for the idea that there could be a million players who want a apartment in Seoul, you know, in New York. If 1 million players buy apartments in New York, they have to have 1 million apartments in New York for players. In some way, shape, or form. To be kind of like make that work, or something around that. They can't have like 5, so. Does this mean that hangar modules are coming with Revel and York, etc., or just generic hangar with cargo? That's just generic hangar and cargo for right now, yeah. We're lucky we'll see this in 2 years. Yeah, this is not anytime soon. This is not anytime soon. I think the fact that they're talking about it now tells me it's probably sometime next year is the plan, or at least the idea. And the fact that it's with the Montreal team, who is very good at what they've been doing, plus the PU team with Chad McKinney, who's very good. He's very, very good. That man is a fucking saint. Like, it'll do well. So, but the problem is, yeah. Chaos is a ladder. Love it. Are there features in IC today live with 320? I think they mentioned a couple things. Yeah, this right here. This is live in 320. The fact that they do all of these different cargo sizes.
1 SCU, 2, 4, 8, 16, 24, and 32. However, with this new version of cargo coming out subsequently, we're going to be adding the...
I mean, with the size of Star Citizen cities, you could possibly have that many apartments issue. The issue is you have to render that many apartments, and you have to send that to all the clients, and that all the clients have to be able to see each other. And you have to get transport to those apartments. It just goes on and on and on and on. It's that point it becomes a getting back and forth sort of thing.
The ability to have what we call inventory container boxes.
Inventory actually plays a big part of cargo as well. When you look at the sheer scope of number of boxes and, you know, a number of weapons and armor and FPS entities.
You have to render anything that a player can see. So if there's a window that can see out and see other players or other habs, you have to be able to render all of those other distances out that direction.
That we have in our game.
No, that's Chad McKinney. Chad McKinney has been the U.S. PU team for a long time.
We really want to make sure that not only is cargo physicalized, but that inventory has a proper location and place as well.
If you go to Port Tressler and you hit I, you'll bring up the player inventory screen, and you'll see that, okay, I have my access to Port Tressler inventory no matter where I am standing in the station. That's going to go away. This is very important because what it means is it gives the players a way to transfer in a very clean and effective way all of the loose items that you collect during gameplay.
A big change that's coming up is going to be having properties for those boxes.
I was really sold on the idea that Chris presented the 2018 CitizenCon demo with unique habs, so this was a bit disappointed to me. I don't think you're going to have a situation where you walk into a hangar or into a hab and have it be like a generic hab. I don't think that's going to be necessarily always the case. I think they're going to try to split the differences between those because mostly what they're talking about in that situation, the instances was hangars, not persistent hangars, but the other hangars. So we're getting raided.
So that could be something like a box that's fragile, or a box that could be radioactive, or that needs to be kept cold. The other thing we're looking at with cargo and cargo boxes is the ability to store large items in your cargo boxes. This could be anything from a ship weapon to even smaller vehicles like Grey Cats. That way, when you're going with your friends, you're going to do a long haul across the verse, you can have these larger boxes filled to the brim with as many
Midgards, you're in the wrong channel if you're looking for gameplay. Go to another channel because that's what this is more of a Q&A session. So
ship weapons is your ship is going to carry.
Anything that you think you want to take with you and hold on to, now you can put them in an inventory container box, snap them into the cargo grid, and haul it into your ship. Additionally, you'll be able to take those to the freight platforms in order to put them into your inventories. So it gives a kind of universal way to haul things around in the game, as well as a way for players to be able to pirate player inventories now. Now that you have these goods that are locked up together in these inventory containers, it just takes a tractor beam in order to carry them off. So it gives a lot of gameplay possibilities for us to have with these loose items.
A lot of these things will tie into missions and where you decide to place them on your ship.
So basically what they're saying is that they're going to have two different types of containers. They're going to have commodity containers and inventory containers. And you will no longer be able to just have infinite inventory or like inventory, like magic inventory in a ship. You'll have to put them in a container. I do wonder if that means they're no longer going to do like the kind of inventory where you like look into like the like cabinets in some of the ships or like the drawers in some of the ships and have, you know, inventory there, or if like it has to take up cargo space, because that would be an interesting change.
So we're really trying to make sure with cargo, it's not just a wide system.
I'm not too keen on the ideas of personal inventory being a piratable item. Everything's going to be piratable. Everything is going to be accessible by other players. That's the whole point.
But then we're actually adding these kind of elements to help further gameplay, missions, and purpose.
You guys had the week off. This is a design brief show. It's talking and it's intense, and none of this stuff is ready to show yet. Don't you want a week off? Your stuff's so weird anyway. Just no weird stuff for cargo grid. Back to the spaceship.
we have some additional changes that we're going to be making to the cargo grids that allow them to have any sized item attached into them. At the moment, we have effectively one kinds of items that attach to the cargo grids. Those are the cargo boxes, and they all have a similar size step on the dimension. And what I just mean by that is they're all what we call 1 SEU length multiples on each side. We're going to have it to where anything can attach to the cargo grid as long as it's a physical item in the game. Anything that you can grab with that tractor beam that can reasonably snap into place will be able to snap into place. And this is a
Giant hot dogs. I demand giant hot dogs, CIG.
requirement just to satisfy the inventory changes that we're making now that you won't have this kind of magical access. But it also, I think, broadens the horizons about what your cargo grids and all of your ships can be used for. I think it'll also open up a lot of fun gameplay around just figuring out how to arrange all these things in a way that works well.
So yeah, that's part 1 of our talk about Design Brief Cargo Career. Next week, we'll be back with changes to vehicles and location inventory, larger cargo item support, kiosk changes, the item bank, and even unique item recovery. So come on back and get the full scope of things next week. And as testing and fixing continues on Alpha 320 over on the PTU, with the latest additions to Arena Commander and the Persistent Universe heading your way, you can check out the RobertSpaceIndustries.com website or launcher for details on when that releases. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the process of game development with you, and for indulging us in these mostly visual-free design brief shows, and we'll see you all here for part 2 next week.
All right. We'll see if we actually get a part 2. Jared, how often do we get a part 2 these days? I think we actually got one. I won't be too mad at him for part 1 of server meshing, which then went nowhere, and we haven't heard it then. Now, Paul, if anything can be attached to cargo grids, that means they can they'll make props that we can find at UGF in cities, like cargo containers, attached to the SCU grids. Probably. I mean, that's the problem is the more of a what by anything, what do you mean anything? Like, what kind of things can and can't? All right, I'll be right back, chat. If you're on YouTube, mute for this few moments. I'll be right back. We'll talk a little bit about it.
Good news, everyone! Weapons free, y'all!
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Good news, everyone! Good news, everyone!
Everybody in his dog calls himself an outlaw.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
I'm flying.
It was at this moment that he knew. It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
I'm fly. I'm fly.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Drugs. Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Drugs.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy. Everybody in his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
All right, stop it.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
No more fun. Road to Pyro Part 37. Yeah.
Well,
Oh, they're going to talk about Pyro again this year.
complicated process.
Guarantee it's going to talk about Pyro this year. Giant carcadator dangling from ships by cable ropes to use as impromptu anti-personnel wrecking ball when? I mean, as soon as you can do it. It's been a long road getting from there to here. Nice try, Scooter. Listen, Scooter, I would mean money. If you find that boy Scooter, tell him he owe Paul a lot of money. I want my goddamn fitty bitty. All right, he got my Fitbit. I need that Fitbit back. Tell me you can find me by the old chicken tree. You know where that is. God damn it. But will we get Pyro? No. I like the idea of a place where I can store my stuff and access it, like having containers for undersuits, armor, clothing, wherever Hangar have, but not happy with risky transport. I mean, there'll be places where you can keep it safe, but everywhere is going to be risky. CIG has been very upfront in that they want to make you absolutely terrified to fly. Like, just transporting or just navigating space between planets is going to be an element of danger. They want EVAs to really fucking nail bite people. Like, they're trying to make it as sim as possible without making it just a pain in the ass. So things like EVA, knowing how to EVA, having EVA fuel, like your suits won't have infinite EVA fuel like they have now. They'll have limited oxygen, they'll have limited fuel supplies, you'll have specific types of suits which will be better at EVA than other suits, you know, that kind of thing. Well, there's no risk if you're smart to navigate routes where no one goes. It works nowadays. It would work in the future. Outsmart the pirates. True, but there's always going to be a probability volumes that'll possibly spawn in some events that you have to deal with. But probably come at this later time this time next year. Yeah. My original thought was probably would get like a 4.0 PTU Evocati shit towards the end of this year, and then maybe like a 318 style release. But with how gun shy CIG has been, let's take a look at that too. So because I do want to kind of emphasize, there's a lot that's came out this week, which gives us a nice glint, nice little peek into CIG's mentality. I'm gonna try to do a video on this if I have time to. Time. The fuck is time? So I'm gonna read through this introduction because this introduction is very important. And then I'll go through some of the PES stuff. A lot of this other stuff is important, like rivers and sand caves, but as you can see, they don't have a lot to talk about here because these were not as complicated. These weren't as bad. Though I am interested in hearing this. Hole scraping, some of that stuff. New player experience. I'll look through some of these things. I'll pick and choose. But this is the post-mortem. It's something that CIG does, which I really like, because it gives us a kind of a little hint at what CIG did, what they fucked up on, and what the lessons they learned from it. So it gives us an idea of what CIG is talking about in terms of what they do. And it gives us a little glint at some of the things that they do already. So, what do you think about a medical MSR? It would work, but I think they need to redo the MSR's interior because it's kind of really badly made. Standalone EVA backpack takes the backpack slot, gives more control. Yeah, they actually have that. It's called the man maneuvering unit, but it's like there was like a reward you got for, it was like a thing you could put onto your suits. But yeah, this won't be a capsule really. I think I might do a capsule for it, But I think what it really needs to do is like a standalone video where you kind of look at it and then compare it to what CIG has said in the past. And then it requires some research, which I may or may not have time to get into and talk about, because I don't think it's going to be that interesting. It's interesting to me, but it's not that interesting enough for like a video. But it does help us a little bit in terms of understanding where the fuck is server meshing. So let's start with this. Alpha 3.18 launch. As many of our players experience, we launched Alpha 3.18 on March 10th of this year. And alongside a bevy of high-profile new features like salvage, the Vulture patch, flyable ship, the Vulture patch, the surprise Scorpius Antares, new rivers, new missions. The biggest headliner patch was the delivery of persistent entity streaming, PES, which completely rewrote how we save state in the game and ushered in the beginning of the promise of a truly persistent universe, where a player's actions could remain in the game for others to interact with. Actions? Okay. And create a lived-in environment where you could literally leave your mark in the PU. And just as importantly, PES was the necessary final stepping stone to delivering static server meshing. Many of you who follow Star Citizen appreciate how consequential and important our delivery of Alpha 3.18 was for us and the game itself. Many teams at CIG spent most of the second half of the year finishing out persistent entity streaming as we deployed it to our public test universe servers for testing in December 2022. And then spent the next 3 months attempting to harden and improve it for launching to our live Star Citizen services as quickly as possible. However, when the moment of truth came and Alpha 3.18 shipped live, the shock to the system was beyond what we had projected. While it was true that we expected PES to create a rough experience initially as we ironed out the issues that could only expose themselves at massive scale, and we warned as much, to say that we were surprised with the depth of chaos from PES launch would be an understatement. They didn't realize how bad it was going to be, is the answer. Hey, everyone, have a good night. The anticipation for PES and 3.18 was nothing short of unprecedented for us. The patch first dropped on March 10th. When the patch first launched, we experienced our highest peaks ever for logins per minute and per hour, and had the highest number of attempted logins in a day for the first few days of launch. We say attempted logins because, as you all know, the service was so overwhelmed by traffic and teething pains of PES that many players could not get into the game, as various issues stalled users throughout the login funnel. Some were stuck in queues, some couldn't get their characters to load, some were stuck in an infinite loading screen, as you can read more about in Benoit's, our Chief Technical Officer's account below on PES. We underestimated the multiplicative forces to going to live, and can read now creating the persisting every entity players created through their actions created a load on our service that was beyond our initial forecasts. And it took weeks, if not months, to expose, diagnose, create fixes, test them, and deploy them to restore the service, all while the game was still running on live. We learned a lot from the launch of PES, and while we were still recovering and regret the compromised services in the first few days and weeks of the rollout, it has definitely taught us a valuable lesson to value and preserve the integrity of the service more than we had in the past. That's why we began to roll out the replication layer, split, and crash recovery, two things now enabled by PES. We will do so gradually as we begin to deliver server meshing. We will create a dedicated testing channels to harden those new technologies further and implement standards and thresholds before we graduate them to the PTU and then to live. You can start to see the ramifications of that later in this year and hear more about it from us later about our new approach to developing potentially disruptive and game-changing tech to the game service. But it comes down to us truly committing to preserving the experience for hundreds of thousands, if not millions, who now play Star Citizen as a live game service, albeit in alpha, still in development. So, what can we learn from this specific, sort of weirdly worded, I feel like it wasn't edited enough, but CIG got dick punched. They got ovary kicked. Like, it was a smash your head against the wall sort of experience for CIG, and yeah, it's not a capsule. I'm just kind of going over this, and it completely made them rethink how they launch. So that's pretty big. That means that instead of rushing forward with new technologies, CIG is going to start to pull back on how quickly they develop and deliver new tech, and more focus on the experience of the game, and make sure that any new tech that's introduced is no longer interfering with a live game service. So what does that mean? 4.0 ain't coming out anytime soon. 4.0 may come out into a PTU testing limited version for, you know, special snowflakes or, you know, PTUs or you know, Evocadis or whatever, in like a small limited section of Stanton at the end of this year. Almost certainly that sounds about right. And that may happen for 6 months before it even gets to the PTU. Because CIG is incredibly careful now about how they launch in these big game-changing patches, because they don't want them to be bad. Because if they're bad, it's bad for their budget. I'm sure 318 had a lot of projections, and CIG probably sailed under them spectacularly with how bad that launch was. Although still launch ship sales. But the issue is more, will they sell? And the answer is almost certainly by this experience, by this account, it wasn't just people were pissed, like the money stopped. And you can look at the money currently. Like you can look at the absolute madness that was CIG's money that they were making before 318 launched. And when 318 launched, all of that like record-breaking sales went foo. Now, that wasn't nothing. They still make money. But they went from being possibly meeting or exceeding what they did in 2022 to now probably doing better than 2021. So it's like a downturn in terms of their money. Not the first time it's happened in CIG's history. Probably won't be the last. But it definitely, after they purchased Turbulent, almost certain, and opened up 2 new studios. Yeah, I could see why they might be a little gun shy doing that in the future. Yeah, this is where I will fundamentally disagree with CIG, where I think the problem I think they learned the wrong lesson, which is people want to play the game that you want to make. People don't want to play the game that doesn't change. Like, all live service games exist because they have new patches, new seasons, new content, new maps. And throwing Arena Commander at us isn't going to be the only thing. Like, I like Arena Commander. DJ's fantastic. His team are absolute mad lads. They do great work, and I'd love to see that change. But I didn't come here just to play Arena Commander. Arena Commander is a nice thing to do once a week sort of thing in my mind. Or maybe, you know, like on a weekend, or that sort of thing, or for special events. It's not something I bought Star Citizen for. And I think this approach is probably negatively going to impact the progression of Star Citizen, which makes me more of go, nah, I'm not happy with that. At the rate that their CIG burns through money is concerning, 2 bad years could kill the project. Sure, but I don't think we're seeing this year isn't going to be a bad year. It's still going to be better than 2021. It's just not going to be a record-breaking. 318, we couldn't even log in for a month and a half. I couldn't not log in, and they don't even really acknowledge that. They mention it. I mean, would you be happy if they came to you personally and kissed your feet and said, we're sorry, Aimless, that you personally were locked out of your account? Because, like, they do say people couldn't log in, but like, there's only so much groveling I think CIG can do in mea culpas. This is more of a we fucked up than CIG usually ever does. So It does make me wonder, since we've been doing over the past year, or when it comes to server meshing, we don't have a part 2 meshing video from them yet. Is dev of Squad 42 killing velocity of outcome when it comes to server meshing? I don't think so, because server meshing has nothing to do with Squad 42. Okay, go ahead, Vet Velocity. What's your question? I don't know, the way I read it is they're more aware of the issues and will collaborate earlier in the dev process to resolve them. That could be the case too. For me, this seems like a gun shy, CIG got bit, and they're once bitten, twice shy sort of situation. If the Zeus comes out, would it not make sense for Nesperia to make it the Narasai? Probably a collaboration between the two. That would just be the lore. If they're gunshot, how do you suspect that they will test the tech that can only be stress tested at full PU scale? They've talked about that. They'll talk about it here. Let's just keep going to the action. Give them a good release or two, and gunshotness will go away. Yeah, but the problem is that there won't be, like, what do they release? Like server, but that's not server meshing. That's not pyro. Like, I don't know. Cargo missions, bounty hunting missions, like at a certain point we know that there's like significant amount of blockage that just cannot move forward until server meshing is out. So there's a lot of other things in here. The reasons I propose that the question is, I speculate since they need to bring in things from Squadron 42 in the PU, there may be some impact on how those systems from Squadron 42 will work with server meshing. Hard to think it will be 100% one-to-one conversion. There's definitely going to be some stuff that can't be put into Star Citizen until server meshing is in, but works in Squadron. I think it's more of a, you're going to have an issue of stuff coming into Star Citizen because server meshing isn't working, but would work in Squadron because Squadron is a single player experience. So. Hey, Jake. Jake is here. Okay, cool. Answer that is PES. PES is server meshing. Answer that is PES. PES is server meshing. PES is server meshing. They're too intertwined to talk about separately. Good. Jake would know more. He's the one who. Sorry, they are the one who. Sorry about that, Jake. I'm still trying to work it out in my brain. They're the one who interacts with these teams on a regular basis, talks with them, probably doesn't have full view, but yeah. So this is why this for a lot of these other issues, we can look through PES, the persistent entity streaming, what Benoit wrote, and then we can kind of get a little bit more of an idea here. What went well? The development of PES involved a diverse strike team of programmers with specialized skills from multiple areas across the core tech group at Turbulent. This collaboration was crucial in successfully building the complex system. The strike team followed aligned sprints and goals facilitated by senior engineers and producers that were supported by regular meetings. This resulted in effective communication and minimized the miscommunication or technical misunderstandings, which seems to be the model they're using for server meshing as well. The high code quality bar was maintained by the strike team, who ensured it underwent a thorough design, discussion, and multiple reviews before being integrated into the mainline codebase. The initial deployment of the public test universe and testing with the PTU community went well, setting a positive foundation for further improvements. However, this led to issues discussed below. Finally, PES's system architecture and API, which are based off of undurable queues, prove that they can recover from the worst kind of problems safely and will always tend towards recovery. What didn't go well? Much longer. The research and development aspects of PES posed challenges, requiring the engineers to invent ways around unforeseen problems. Due to the foundational nature of PTS, integrating into the Star Citizen game code resulted in significant changes that disrupted the game at a very low level. And some game teams were unprepared for the integration effort required to bring the game systems back to parity, or to convert and leverage the new persistence layer for existing features. Issues with changes introduced by PES only became apparent during large-scale use and under heavy player load, which caused delays in identifying and resolving the problems, and features not thought to use persistence at all became affected by trivial delays, like tram systems, spawn queues, and others. They mentioned that like they had to completely rework the trams because of how the PES would work. That was one of those things they had to completely. I remember on the lead up to PES, the monthly reports talked about that. We also underestimated the multiplication factor between the PTU and live operations. A group which estimated a 10 times increase in the backend activity, but were faced with 20 times plus increase in requests, stream messages sizes, and overall activity, which caused service outages across the board during the initial launch. Regarding vehicles, PES heavily modified the way that they are entitled and created in-game. This gives us a better user experience where you can choose where a ship ends up being created, but also significantly reduces the size of the inventory / global database for ships that are never used. The major issues were also discovered at scale with a third-party database engine that PES leverages for its functionality. These issues gave birth to a very unstable request-response cycles as well as heavy queuing. These issues also cause ripple effects where one database server entering a deadlock condition would cause the entire shard cluster, instead of a single shard, to stop processing requests for a period. This was a major cause for the instability throughout the Alpha 318X, until the team identified and programmed a workaround to alleviate the effects. Additionally, multiple locking problems at scale were discovered in the global database system, the same engine, that would cause the periodic stop of all requests to the inventory systems. The team had to investigate and report to our vendors to determine workarounds and ultimately fixes that would prevent database engine from locking. In the engine, several shards reached previously unknown hard limits of the maximum number of allocated entities, forcing the teams to seed / create new shards and cycle them out, diluting the effects of persistence on those shards. Okay. Several bugs were uncovered in those unstable times, with error handling in parts of the login flow that bricked some accounts in different ways related to character creation. Server crash handling was discovered to take a much longer amount of time due to a new process that kicks in during the post-mortem analysis. This affected the shard post-mortem and delayed players getting stowed back in global inventory, which would result in player character being stuck in a shard. Okay. And since shards don't just go away anymore like they used to, you just are stuck in the background when unable to be returned. I think that's what I mean when they say vendors. As far as I know, the MFDs have been converted to BBs. One of the HUDs is consistently constructing thousands of nodes in our building blocks system, which stalls the entire game engine massively, not happening every frame, resulting in the ugly stuttering. We've seen frames where this is alone it takes 70 milliseconds compared to 60 milliseconds. Yes, but new MFDs are probably years away. They just implemented the persistence of MFDs. No, they're not years away. Because the new MFDs are Squadron 42. They've been finished in Squadron 42 for at least in the final stage. CIG finished. CIG massive quotation marks finished. But they've been kind of done for that a while. Hey, Loken, thanks for that raid. Welcome everybody. How you doing, Loken? We're kind of going over the post-mortem to kind of talk a little bit more about we're talking about like there's some interesting insight we can gather in terms of CIG's mentality moving forward because of these sorts of things. So yeah, Cuban's always charming. Squadron 42 is years away. Yeah, but the thing that you got to remember, Sergeant Lobster, this is the important thing. Let's look at hole scraping. Hole scraping was first created in Squadron 42 and then ported over to the PU. It had been finished in Squadron 42 much before, well before it actually made it over to the PU, and it needed some conversion and such. And it's not the only thing. Spacescaping, there's lots of tech that was first developed for Squadron 42 that eventually made it into Star Citizen. So we're going to get a lot of the tech that's in Squadron 42 that's done for Squadron 42 in the PU long before it ever enters, Squadron 42 ever enters release. There'll be some exceptions, which are like, my guess would be the Titan armor would likely not be, because it's specific to Squadron 42 in terms of its like gameplay. Same with like the Idris, the Javelin, those sorts of things will probably be still in Squadron 42 until they release Squadron. They probably won't port them to the PU. So yeah. I'm just saying there's a lot of bugs out there. We're trying to report these things and contribute to the testing process. It's hard to keep positive when you see items long-standing not being addressed. Unfortunately, we're not on the inside to understand the dependencies and priorities. Just because that's in the issue council doesn't indicate how widespread it is. Bug regression can always happen. That's true as well. All right, let's go through the better use, because this is actually, we've kind of gone through the whole thing. Now this is the important thing about how CIG seems to be, what the lessons they have learned from this. Going forward, we'll finalize and use the new cloud test launcher to adequately stress test the game shards at scale. So this is the tech that they talked about in the past, which is basically lets them test. I think it's a tool that they developed in-house. I could be wrong with that. It's either, I don't think it's an off-the-shelf thing. I think it's some modification. Is it off the shelf, Jake? Yeah, I remember asking you about this. I don't remember if it's so it's just a new tool that they got. The point being, so someone was asking earlier, but how are you going to do stress test numbers if you don't, because you're going to have the same problem again, right? If you don't have the numbers of people, how are you going to get the numbers of people without the numbers of people? People don't play the PTU. And the answer is this test launcher. It's one of the things. This tool will simulate player behaviors and allow QA and engineers to connect multiple modified game clients to the shard. By utilizing cloud computing resources, effective stress testing can be conducted, which will help identify and address issues relating to heavily loaded servers before moving to live. So that's the answer of how they're going to be doing it going forward. The team responsible for the PES has now moved into static server meshing and are embracing the transformation approach to the new project. Unlike PES, this foundational technology can be integrated into the code base gradually, avoiding the disruptive Big Bang approach. Parts of the server net meshing tech are already available to the game team for testing compatibility with their game features. Combined with the Cloud Test Launcher, this approach aims to facilitate a smoother integration process for static server meshing. What does that mean? It means that this is the first indication that elements of server meshing are in the dev branch. That doesn't mean everything, but because we often, as gamers, we tend to think of things as blocks. Like the worst term that has ever been invented is netcode. Netcode doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination. It's like a myth. Netcode is hundreds of different programs running at once, or dozens of different programs running at once. Depends on what you're using. It's not just one Lego block. So that may mean good things. It may mean that they're able to test and figure out if their specific part of the game works with server meshing already. But it's not a perfect solution. By implementing these measures, we aim to enhance our testing capabilities and mitigate integration challenges, ensuring smoother delivery for foundational technologies while minimizing disruption to the game. That last bit is the big one. That last bit is an indication, at least to me, you could tell me if I'm wrong or not, that CIG is going to be slowing down the delivery of foundational changes. Either piecemealing it or taking longer in PTU for things like the static server meshing, all those sorts of things. Now, pretty big news there. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people, I don't know if everyone has caught that, because the last time we heard anything about server meshing was that the engine team had to fold a bunch of server meshing team members into their team for a reason that was never, for communication reasons, which didn't bode well. It sounded like there was some communication problems, which isn't unusual. CIG was having issues with the server meshing, team. Something was going on between the engine and server meshing team. That was back in July, I think, or June. Monthly report that talked about that. So this also could be. This is probably more of a conspiracy theory on my end, and I fucking would hate to be right about this, because this is it tracks with how CIG does things. CIG will do this. We'll do this. These are all from 2016. I don't pull this up to be like, hey, stab you, CIG. More of a, CIG is notorious for doing shit like this, where they're like, this is simple. Multiple systems, star systems with 4.0, discovery, exploration, research, science and research, Orion, the Crucible, additional solar system locations, 3-bot 2, salvage, repair, mercenary, covert operations, the Taurus, the Phoenix, the Terrapin, the Harbinger, the Sentinel, the Reclaimer. Additional solar system locations. So like, what happens is the CIG has an idea of what's going to happen. They get to that point where they're sitting down and they're starting to like dig into this with the ideas that they have in mind, and they start digging and they go, holy fuck, this is a lot more complicated than we thought. Or holy fuck, this doesn't work. Or holy fuck, this is boring as shit. And so they have to sit there and they have to pull it apart and rework it, and they break it up into smaller chunks and deliver it to us piece by piece. That's been how CIG does, has basically approached every single problem they've encountered in development since the beginning of the game. As a result, I wouldn't put it past CIG that this is a test balloon saying that 4.0 is not going to have pyro, or they'll have server meshing in before 4.0, and it will be just Stanton with 2 servers meshed together, or whatever, breaking it up into smaller chunks that they can tackle, analyze, and then release, which would mean that static server meshing and Pyro wouldn't come out for another 2 years. I don't think that's the case, but it could be the case. They're building the hype train for funds with those types of announcements. CIG has stopped doing a lot of those blanket announcements back in 2018. Like 2017, 2018, CIG got, once bitten, twice shy kind of thing. Like they realized they fucked up and they've kind of pulled back a lot of that. The indication is with CitizenCon. CitizenCon is no longer these fucking giant sandworm bullshit. It's more of you're going to see over the next year. I work in a company of less than 100, and there are communication problems between sales and estimating. If you have just 2 people working together, you're going to have communication issues. You just got to mitigate it as best as you can. Yeah, I mean, but I know that. But I mean, like, there's obviously other problems. Like there's been obviously problems throughout this process that CIG's had to tackle or change. That's nothing new to Star Citizen. Star Citizen is an R&D project. That is slowly becoming a game. I don't think anything we saw in CitizenCon last year is in the game now. Ruined Outposts is in the game. I think it was in CitizenCon last year. Let's look. Well, let me remember what was in CitizenCon last year. All right, so it was multiple speeds. So they talked about master modes, which is being tested today. They showed off some of the new caverns, which includes like the cave, sand caves, which I think which was released in 3.18. The Lorville Redux, which was in 3.18. The stuff that really wasn't there was Pyro. The mission archetype that deals with investigations. Some of the stuff that was like the UGFs, like the new UGFs weren't there, and the power play stuff isn't. So about half of it, but a lot of it is in there in piecemeal. And I wouldn't be surprised. Again, Pyro has been on the docket for CitizenCon since 2018. Like it's something that they've been fucking up pretty hard. But there's a lot of other stuff that they do. Master Modes needs a lot of work, in your opinion? It's better than previous years. Well, I mean, like a lot of it, like, for instance, the UGFs and the new Cavern stuff was like, eh. And we're probably going to see the new UGF stuff sooner rather than later. I don't know if it's blocked behind 4.0, but I don't think we're seeing it in 3.21, but I think we'll probably see it a year after that. And the power management stuff, there seems to be some mention of the power stuff coming in at some point. And we've gotten more missions. We just haven't had that specific investigation mission stuff, which was interesting. The problem, the thing is that like none of that stuff is stuff that's like pie in the sky. You know, you don't see it in, like in a couple years. The resource management is an absolutely gargantuan project that Dan and company have been working on for 2 years now. It touches the entire game. I mean, you'll see it in developers talking about it, and you'll see it in the monthly reports a lot. But to give you the context, y'all, power management is not just ships. We already talked about this earlier. It's every part of the game. Your suits will start to use power management because it's not just power, it's not just resources. It's not power, it's resources. So oxygen, fuels for your EVA system, shielding for radiation, cooling systems so you don't overheat, heating systems so you don't freeze to death. That all of those factors would put into your suit. Every building will have power, resource, heat management. Like your guns will have some of that aspects in them. It is literally touches every part of Star Citizen in a very meaningful way, which is the reason why when Dan starts talking about it, and it's Dan Truffin, you can see whenever I hear Dan or I see Dan or I see John Crew talk about it, you can see that look in their eyes of like, Jesus fucking Christ, what did we do? Why the fuck are we doing this? It's that look that I get in my eyes every time I have to, like, I decide I've got this great new idea for an assessment for my kids, and I go, I have 190 kids. I'm gonna have to grade 190 of these things. I hate my life. So, you know. Yeah, battery stream multi-tool is a good example, yeah. UGF is probably blocked by servers being overloaded to put enough NPCs. The UGF fun. Yeah. The Bones of Master Voda is great. It just needs tuning. Seems like the consensus of most pilots I listen to. I don't think a big part of the players would be hopeful if Pyro is once again significantly delayed. Hellion orbit mechanics were amazing, but way too complex, even if Star Citizen is half the sim itself. There's a lot of stuff that we need to wait and see for Star Citizen. But do they put tricording back in master modes? I don't know. I didn't play enough master modes to know. Master modes was one of those things where they released it so people could try it out, and I'm sure they'll test it because it's going to be in 320. Like master modes, versions of master modes will be available for everyone to test in 320 for the experimental mode, so everyone will get a chance to try it out to give their feedback. But I have a feeling that master modes was never going to be something that everyone liked because it's going for force the gameplay. As HC Vertigo talks about, it isn't designed to make the gameplay work for what the game, to make the gameplay work in a way that would make the game work for what it is now. It's making the game what they want it to be. So, close-in dogfighting, very up close and fighting one another. It's designed to bring that World War II dogfighting experience. That's why. Star Citizen realistic? Star Citizen. All right. If we're gonna go down this road, I always have to use the same old speech. Whenever I hear people be like, "I back Star Citizen for the realistic spaceflight experience," and I have to laugh because it's like Space Fighters is not realistic. It never has been, and never will be. Even theoretical modern space combat involves beyond the galactic plane, like solar plane engagement, where you're launching rockets or missiles or just bits of junk and calculating the trajectory of a ship moving at whatever space, or just throwing shit at the planets. Like, it's nuts. Falling Frontiers does a pretty good job of kind of simulating some of that stuff, but Star Citizen at its core is World War II dogfighters in space, and they got to make that work by breaking some realism. So a list is likely announcements at CitizenCon this year going to be achievable within the next 6 months. What do you think? I think Bounty Hunting 2.0. I think a lot of the stuff that they showed off last year that was going to be that's in Squadron, like the new EVA system. Some of the new movement systems that they showed off last year is already in, with like being able to like grab onto ledges and pull yourself up. That's what the new the big much celebrated being able to lift yourself into the Cutlass Black now without having to do the box trick. Like, bravo. That's all part of that new movement system. Yeah, the new vaulting stuff, the mounting and vaulting and all that kind of stuff. I do think that they'll probably announce something to do with some of the new missions, like the new reputation stuff, the new investigation missions, some of the new cargo missions. I think they'll talk more about that. The one thing I'm a little bit on the edge of is the new character creator system. Thank you, Jake. Official CIG announcement. There is no more. They're getting rid of the star map, and no one's getting any maps. Period. Maps are dead. Maps are in the past. When people say realism in Star Citizen, I think they mean not arcade-ish. I don't think anyone really thinks Star Citizen is an arcade game. I do think that we'll probably see the new MFDs and the new star map. Almost certainly they'll show it off, and I think we'll probably get like the new mobiGlas. We'll get portions of it before next year. I don't know if we'll get all of it. I'm going to steal a word that I remembered. I only remembered because of Danny Raymond, Ray's Guide. When he was talking about the Earth problem of Starfield, which is verisimilitude. Star Citizen is trying to go for a verisimilitude, which, if I remember correctly, is believability within the context of where you are. So, like, for instance, there are plenty of fake buildings in movies, but you don't know they're fake because you don't see the behind. They're painted to look realistic when you look at them from like 180 degrees. But if you break that 180 degree line, you realize that there's nothing behind that building. So Star Citizen is going to go for some of that verisimilitude. Matte painting, exactly. Star Citizen is not an arcade game, y'all. It's not Star Fox. Anyone who says Star Citizen is like Star Fox or like those like, no. It's striking a balance between those two. I don't think we'll get data running. I don't think data running, because there's been no movement on data running. It's not really been a thing that they've been talked a lot about at all. That's my point. No Man's Sky is arcade-ish. Star Citizen is not. Yeah. No. Please get paper maps. I do think they'll show off the new map system, though. Talking about the interior maps. Dear God, are they talking a lot about the fucking maps? One of the things that made Tree 0311 really like stand up and shout was landing maps. Come here, chat. Come here close. For Squadron 42, they've developed a system where when you go into landing mode, it will display for you what's right underneath you. So you can see what you're landing on in a very simplified motion. You're lucky. You're welcome. We did have that landing maps before, but that was way too resource intensive. I think it was very, I think it was only built very like bespoke. It's like only for the areas you were. Listen. If you can't handle the Paul ASMR, you can get out. You can get out. I'm calling Jake on his on their BS. Jake, I do not believe you. That's my plan. You don't like Paul ASMR, it's fine. They have rear cameras now in the real world, which I don't need, but still, the bottom view camera landing would definitely help in the landing tight hangars of Seraphim. Yeah, I mean, I think they like I said, they're developing that, so they'll probably show that off. But yeah, from what I can gather, it's very similar to Elite Dangerous, or at least close to it. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Like almost certainly they'll show off, they'll trumpet a lot about Vulcan stuff, and they will have Vulcan done. Next year, almost certainly they'll have the API for Vulcan done. But I'm going to tell you one thing. If you think that team is finished when Vulcan's done, hell no. That team is going to work until, like, that thing is spit shine. Like, that team is nuts. They are dedicated to what they do. And whenever they present, the community is like, we like you. And, you know, that's got to give them some ego boost right there, because they're very good. Yeah, they love that VR is their ultimate goal, so. Orbiter was a detailed spaceflight sim. Yeah. But I don't, like, you were never going to get Orbiter in Star Citizen. You were never going to get, like the full detail. You think Sylvan has had a day off yet? If I remember correctly, Sylvan, like, looks at Spectrum on his days off. I love Sylvan. Sylvan's nuts. From it doesn't follow close anymore. What is Vulcan bias? Potato PC performance. By that I mean Vulcan integration will allow for lower end PCs to play Star Citizen at higher resolutions. It will also increase the overall performance, moving a lot of the performance away from the CPU towards the GPU. So basically what your content, the stuff that you have, like the rig you have, will determine how well your game is going to function. Yogi is terrible at that. Yogi needs to, like, just go to bed sometimes. He just needs to, like, get a hobby. It isn't his job. Well, even if we get Vulcan in, we're not going to see great improvements until server meshing. We'll see client improvements, for sure. We'll see client improvements. And from the way that CIG has talked about that team's work, I think it'll have some improvements on performance in game. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see improvements, FPS performance, just like flat out FPS performance across the whole game. I just don't think we're going to see improvements in terms of any more improvements beyond that, because they're going to need server meshing for things like increased numbers of NPCs, increased entities in general. So. I spoke with Yogi, and he said it's their fault to make them defend his work. Yogi, it's okay. They're just internet denizens. They're netizens. Like, they'll say shit's bad, they'll say shit's bad and not even ever look at your stuff. Like, a lot of the issue is server performance as opposed to client. A lot of the issues are server performance, yes. But right now, well, as of recently, a lot of client performances has been improved because of this. But generally speaking, it's been getting better. So like your rig will determine more about how well the game performs for you. More and more, but I don't think it's fully mitigated over to like your GPU mattering. So, hey, these are the voyages. What I'm saying is it's very noticeable that the hits we take when lots of players are in the server and it hits FPS noticeably. Yes, I don't disagree with that, but I still get, 70 to 80 FPS on 100 player servers in the middle of space or on a random planet. Like, it usually matters when your players are together, and that's really the issue with FPS. But, and this is gonna sound fucked up, but the vast majority of Star Citizen players are not going into Star Citizen to PvP. They're going in to maybe hang out with a couple of friends and go explore a planet or do some missions. And generally speaking, I think Vulkan integration will improve the experience for those players. I know what you're saying, Zero. You're saying that it's not going to be the magic bullet that fixes all the problems, which it's not. But I do think it's going to see some noticeable increases in performance for players. Hey, Deep-Light. How mad are people going to get when they have to backtrack to colony building, you think? Because I can see them doing land claims Old West style with a shift to persistent hangars and no, they're not going to backtrack on colony building. It's just going to take them longer than you realize. I agree. Full Vulkan with DLS and FSR3, etc. will definitely help. Yeah. Now, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, who've been blaming the game for a long time to the point where they're like, well, the game sucks. It's like, the game's fine. I'm getting 50 FPS in a landing zone. Well, I'm only getting 20. It's like, well, what's your rig? It'll be the first time I'll finally feel justified in saying that, and people being like, wait, what? Because for so long, it's been like, I've got the best rig of all time, and I get 30 FPS. It's gotten better. Like, notably, it's gotten better over the last couple of patches, but... If we run Lorville at 20 FPS at the cities with DLSS, we could get 40 with the potato build and landing zones. Probably not as good, but they'll definitely become more about what your rig is, and it'll definitely improve it for lower end rigs. I don't think we're going to see Zero. I will say this: I don't think we're going to get any of that fully integrated before the end of this year. I do think we'll get it integrated by the next year, though. Kevin Lester, I'll watch the VOD, the monthly report. We've done the post-mortem. We kind of looked through the post-mortem a little bit and the ISC. We're going to be doing the monthly report here shortly. I'm just, we're running a little bit late because we had a lot to talk about. We talked about the leaks, the vaunted leaks, and a lot of the leaks, I think, require some context. And I'm not going to replay the whole thing, but I think the thing that you have to understand when it comes to any sort of leaks is you have to understand the source upon which you're getting. And my personal experience with CIG employees is that, generally speaking, most CIG employees are happy to work at their job. They talk about that. They get really treated very well. They have really good benefits. And the pay is not great, but they always get work if they want to work. So they always get extra money if they need extra money. And if they have problems, CIG is willing to bend over backwards to help them out. That's just the general experience. Most of the people I've talked to who have worked or have currently work or have worked at CIG say it's the best job they've ever had in gaming industry. So that's been the general experience. But at the same time, not everyone is going to have with 1,000+ employees, you're going to have people who are not going to be happy with their experience with Star Citizen. And that's been the case for CIG. That's been the case throughout CIG's existence. So anyone who's leaking information is probably not on the happiest end of the spectrum. So a lot of the stuff that's being leaked has been given a negative slant, but a lot of it is also stuff that if you followed the project like myself does, or if you've been watching a lot of the content I talk about month to month, week to week, it's not surprising. Like Squadron 42 is nearing completion. Like 4.0 is probably not coming to the end this year, but might have a Evocati PTU sort of release for limited testing purposes. What was the other one? That CIG is looking into releasing Squadron 42 on consoles. So any truth to CIG planning and getting the game to other platforms like consoles, or that pure BS? CIG has never ever been well, they've been coy about it, but they've never said no. I remember there's a famous incident where Ben Lesnick, it kept getting brought up because CIG had a PS4 development kit that was seen in a tour, like someone was, filming something with a camera and it caught the PS4 development kit that was there at the time. And Ben Lesnick, it was brought up to Ben Lesnick, and Ben Lesnick said every single Wing Commander game that Chris Roberts ever made it to console. He never said that the Squadron 42 would go to console. He just said every single Wing Commander game that's ever been made has been in console. So, and I've been one of those people who's been saying, if you don't think Squadron 42 is going to make it to console, you're high. Like, that's money that CIG's leaving on the table. There's no fucking way they won't do that. So the fact that if I don't know if that's true or not, I don't involve myself in those sorts of folks, but I really wouldn't be surprised if CIG's in talks with companies to get a port of Squadron to consoles. I think a lot of people, the way it was written, it sounds like that Squadron 42 is going to release alongside on consoles alongside PC. I don't think that's the case. They would have had to already be developing for consoles, which there's been no evidence of. That it takes a lot of manpower and testing to test for consoles. We would have seen CIG hiring specifically testers for PS4 or PS5 and Xbox Series X testers, which we haven't, or seen evidence of them hiring out to other companies, that sort of thing. It just hasn't happened. So I think that's one of those things that requires context. I'm not surprised if that's the case, but it's likely that CIG is talking with either Sony or Microsoft, possibly both at the same time, and trying to get them to buy the game to give to one of their kind of port developers. So. Didn't they show Squadron 42 to Microsoft Gamescom? I don't know. Porting does take time. It takes time. It's not a simple push button, go out. But it would be silly to think that CIG would be leaving money on the table to not release Squadron 42 with the star power they have in that game to consoles. But at the same time, I also think that CIG will eventually release Squadron 42 to every single PC platform that exists. Meaning they already have a Linux build, or like they're working on a Linux build. I think it's already out. Macton, are you here? You're the Linux acolyte in this one. Didn't they say something about working on Linux for a Linux client for Star Citizen? Because the backend already works on Linux, so. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, Luna Maria. CR himself said he won't say no to console release, but he won't downgrade Star Citizen to do it. Basically, yeah, basically like that. It's going to come out on PC first and in console later. That would be my guess, just based off of how CIG's developing stuff. So. As a console player, please, no Squad 42 stay on PC. It's not leaving PC. I think that's what a lot of people hear. People see that and go like, ah! like freak out. It's like, no. It's going to come to PC first, and then will be ported over to consoles for other people to try it, to people to buy it and use it and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I would expect. Probably within a year of Squad 42's release, you'd probably see Squad 42 on Steam, Epic, on Good Old Games, any fucking platform that or any store that sells PC games, because that's also money that's left on the table. Once they've reached the market saturation that they think they can get from selling it from their own store and their own launcher, it would make sense to expand it out to other markets. So. Unless Epic offers exclusivity money, they might. I know it sounds terrible, but if they're bidding, they're doing a bidding war with each other. Like, the one thing that has been consistent, which I don't know who the fuck is negotiating for CIG. If it's Ortwin, or if it's Chris, or if it's Sandy, whoever the fuck is doing the negotiations for CIG, dear Jesus Christ, they are good at it. How many times has CIG gotten in bed with a company, had them take in all of the responsibility for something so the CIG didn't have to do jack and or shit, and they developed brand new technology that CIG could use in their company, like the like head tracking technology and like the VoIP technology that they've created, or the FOIP technology they created. It's not CIG tech. It's another company developed it and they just imported it in here. Like, how the fuck do they do that? I have no idea. Like, getting SciTech to dump funds into specific controllers for Star Citizen without CIG paying them to do it is nuts. Paul, but porting Squad 42 reaching other PC platforms will depend on Squadron 42's initial success. If it sells very well, they'll make things go faster or slower depending on how much money they get at the beginning. Yes, but I also think you're underestimating the golden tongue that whoever the fuck is working the business angles that CIG has. Like, dear God, they are good at their job. They could sell ice to Eskimos, like that kind of thing. So, ice to Inuits, you know. BS uses tech that wasn't built by CIG. The database, Post-mortem says it, wasn't created by them. It's by a third party. Yeah, that's more of them buying technology for it. I don't think you'll see Steam codes for release. That's the thing. I don't think, because Steam requires the 30% cut, and I don't think CIG wants to take that 30% cut right away. It's just an old term, Broken AI, the ice to Eskimos. I know it's not Eskimo, it's Inuit, so. Squadron 42 would be a good, hey, look what a console could do, new console can do. It's pretty. I don't think anyone has ever said it's based off of the number of leaks we have and the number of leaks we've seen. This is the one thing that no one has ever said, is that the Squadron 42 is, it's like, oh, it's a pretty game. I don't think anyone said it's ugly. They're good at their job, but that's not confusing what players like with space games wanted with Star Wars and the movie theaters. No, but my point being, Zero Kelvin, is that I think CIG, I wouldn't put it past CIG to be showing vertical slices or specifically cuts of the game to execs at Microsoft or Sony, being like, this is our game. These are the actors that we have involved. It's X number of hours long. They're kind of doing the whole pitch and being like, we are willing to give you access to this for your console, but we don't want to pay anything. You're going to have to give us a cut, and you will develop it on your own, and we'll give you some tech help to help develop it, to port it over. I know your point, but my point is that the market was there in any case. It's not like their marketing had to claw and bleed out the sweat to try to get the money from backers. That's true. That's definitely an additional thing. But it's very odd to see like big names come in out of like left field to work with them in a way without a finished product. Like that's the big one. If they could port Squadron, why not port Star Citizen as well? Probably because Star Citizen MMOs are a lot more complicated to port to consoles because of like the console. So let me lay this out so y'all can understand something, because I know a lot of us are PC gamers, so we don't really see this console side of things. Consoles, and this is going to sound weird, have a much higher rigor that you have to go through to release any kind of patch or update to a console release. Elite Dangerous, for example, the console version of Elite Dangerous, I don't even think, is there even a console version of Elite Dangerous anymore? There used to be. But when it was always like several updates behind the PC release because it required more testing, it required approval from Xbox, like the Xbox service had to test it and had to approve of it and make sure everything was good. But like, you know, unless you're in Alaska, where there's a few to no Inuit people, but there's lots of Inupiat people. But yeah, that's an example. Like Elite Dangerous was on consoles. It's not anymore because it was just a pain in the ass to update. Same with Warframe. Took them forever to try to get the cross-platform for consoles and PC. So as a result, the reason why it's unlikely, in my opinion, that Star Citizen will ever get port is because you would never have crossplay. They would never be able to get crossplay because they would have to, like, let's be fucking honest. Like, I love you, CIG, but your builds would never pass rigmarole, like never pass rigor on a console. I don't care if CIG had a completely released Star Citizen like experience. There's probably going to be bugs in Star Citizen that will stick around in Star Citizen for its entire life. You think we're going to never see NPCs on chairs again? It's going to happen. Even with brand new systems, it's going to happen. There's always going to be problems with Star Citizen at its core because no game is bug free. And the console experience is super harsh in comparison. So why are you booing him? He's right. No, they said they fixed NPCs on tables. I believe them this time. They've only said it 10 times now. The other thing consoles have going for them is that the next generation of consoles will basically be entry-level PCs, which will make them easier. Yeah, it's kind of what the 360 was. When the 360 and the PS3 first came out, they were basically entry-level PCs, which is why they're entry-level PCs at half the price of entry-level PCs when they first released, which is the reason why they were so popular. When you go to CitizenCon, can you please stand on a chair and T-pose? I will. I will. The only game with more bugs than Star Citizen is Starship Troopers. I think it's not impossible to get Star Citizen on the console, but I think the players on a console have access to tools, both hardware and software, as a PC. There'll be a distinct disadvantage. Later, Jaybird. I'm going to use the restroom real quickly, y'all, and when I come back, we're going to do the monthly report read just for Star Citizen, and then we'll call it a night. So don't go anywhere.
2 words. Distress bacon.
Weapons free, y'all.
Good news, everyone! Good news, everyone!
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
2 words. Distress bacon.
Drugs. It was at this moment that he knew.
Drugs.
He fucked up.
Drugs. Drugs.
Good news, everyone!
Drugs.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up. It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Drugs.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
Drugs.
Good news, everyone!
Weapons free, y'all.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Good news, everyone!
Drugs.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
We have coin.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Distress bacon.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
You have coin.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
2 words. Distress bacon.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up. It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
Drugs.
Weapons for y'all. Good news, everyone.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Casitas wares, if you have coin. Good news, everyone.
2 words. Distress and bacon.
Drugs.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Good news, everyone.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
I'm Fly. I'm Pilot. Good news, everyone.
Drugs.
Everyone.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
Drugs. Drugs. Drugs.
Weapons for y'all.
Drugs.
Casitas wares, if you have coin. I like money. Casitas wares, if you have coin.
2 words. Distress and bacon.
Drugs.
Good news, everyone.
2 words. Distress and bacon.
I'm Fly. I'm Pilot.
I'm back. Stop it. Stop it. Took a little bit longer. Sorry about that. All hail Zoidberg.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
All right. So, as always, when we talk about the do these capsules, I'm doing them for YouTube after the fact. So it's designed as that kind of me interacting with the video, not with chat. So I'm going to have limited interactions with y'all. So when I start going, note that do not ask me any questions and expect me to answer them, because I probably won't. And if you see anybody asking questions that they come in late, just tell them, you know, if you can in chat, just be like, hey, he's doing the recording right now. Ask it after he's done. And you'll see me do the sign off, and then I'll kind of do a little bit of waving and dancing a little bit just to tell you, hey, I'm still recording, but I've muted myself because I need to do the outro and that kind of thing. So, all right, it's capsule time. Capsule. I need to make that into an emote of just me doing this. Or just do a capsule emote, you know. All right. I'm glad I forced that meme. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to another Office Hours capsule. That's right. A little segment of my Office Hours live stream that you can catch on Thursdays at, I'm going to say this right, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's right. Twitch.tv/TheAstroPub. We'd love to see you come down and join this chat right here. Say hello, chat. They're going to lie to you and say this is pre-recorded, because that's how they do these things. And yeah, I would love to see you come down and join us live for these. Ask questions, talk about lore, talk about the latest updates, talk about leaks, and all of the wonderful information that we've been getting recently. Would love to see you come down and join us. And if you are watching this on YouTube after the fact, please make sure you comment down below your thoughts on anything I do. And as always, remember to like the video, subscribe for more content like this, and hit the bell icon. With that all being said, this is the August 2023 monthly report for Star Citizen. Before we get into the whole thing, just as a reminder, this is not a summary. At the end, I do kind of a quick summary, but this is a complete read-through of the monthly report. There's nothing wrong with summaries, but I feel like if you really want to follow the content that CIG puts out, which they put out volumes of information all the time, it's important to listen or read through the entire thing. And I would highly suggest that you read it yourself if you have a chance to. I know that's not always the case, so people listen to this as kind of like an audiobook format. But I will be interspacing with my own thoughts about what's going on. And again, this is just the Star Citizen one. With that all being said, let's get into it. All right. As we close in on Alpha 320's live release, many teams are finalizing their work for patch's various new features. Beyond the patch, significant progress is being made on content coming later in the year, so read for the latest. AI features. Last month, AI reviewed perception to fixed issues where NPCs couldn't correctly recognize that a target had died or that they'd seen a situation before. These issues led to various bugs, including the AI constantly calling for med pens or remaining in combat after it had finished. For those who don't know, this is almost likely the new AI system, which is being developed for Squadron 42 first and then into Star Citizen. It's been mentioned a couple times by Chris Roberts himself that unless server meshing is in, there is no way they're getting this new AI system into Star Citizen. So this is all likely Squadron 42 stuff, where the AI is healing itself, it's calling for backup, there's a whole slew of things that the new AI system can do, which we don't see in Star Citizen yet. So this is a lot of Squadron 42 content. They also revisited cover usage, polishing various functionality and animations to ensure that the feature works across the range of situations and environments. Changes and fixes were also made to the tactical point system, which is used to drive where AI moves. This will help identify what needs to be adjusted when reviewing combat in new locations. Balancing was done for AI ammunition usage while maintaining reload and ammo finding functionality to provide realistic and emergent behaviors and gameplay situations. The team continued to review, revisit, and polish combat, including low and high cover reload animations for different weapons and the female animations converted from male assets. They also began developing animations for Marine Squad hand signals to sell group movement and combat. That's almost certain Squadron 42, though I'm sure it'll be ported over to Star Citizen in some capacity. So. All right. AI Tech. Last month, AI Tech added undo and redo functionality to the Apollo subsumption tool. They also began improving subsumption data validation for better presentation and more explicit validation errors. This will allow the designers to iterate faster when creating or adjusting missions and behaviors. On the Boids feature, this is the rats, birds, fish. This is kind of like the not really, but really AI-driven animals, which are more horde-based, I guess you could say, more diverse, more like there's a lot of them around. On the Boids feature mentioned last month's report, AI Tech continued implementing base functionality to allow agents, rats, birds, etc., to adopt their states, such as wandering, idling, or fleeing, and transition between them. They're currently looking for a low-cost solution to keep agents on terrain while moving. Basically, these are low-poly versions of animals. They're not going to want to use a lot of data, but they still want to add them to the background because they kind of add that little spice, that flavor. You know, birds flying above you, rats scurrying around, fish swimming in rivers and such. So, but it's not designed to be super in depth. You're not going for Bass Fish Pro Star Citizen. For NPC audio perception, the team implemented new functionality for how audio stimuli is propagated. This involves using the room system and how rooms are connected to determine whether an audio event should be heard. They also continue to improve navigation links. Firstly, how links connect navigation triangles from different zones, which wasn't working as intended. Secondly, they fixed how animations play when they begin and finish in different zones. For example, when NPCs jump to ground from a hovering ship. Finally, investigation began into performance issues relating to the new navigation system and Pathfinder. I'm really looking forward to the AI system in Star Citizen because the new AI system, because the more they talk about it, the more it sounds insane. Very cinematic, very dynamic too. Animation. In August, the animators worked through a number of behavioral lines for background ambience and flight. They also supported tech animation on creature skeletons that will eventually be used in the PU. This isn't new. They've been working on a lot of creature skeletons and creatures in general beyond Boids. It's been mentioned multiple times in multiple monthly reports, but we just haven't seen them, other than just kind of in the background. That might be something we see at CitizenCon, though, just because there's been a lot of mention of it over the last year or so. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a panel on just the creatures they've come up with. Especially since, I believe a couple of years ago, they hired some of the artists who worked on the original Mass Effect games to help them kind of craft out more animation or more creatures and such. Art characters. Last month, character art progressed with content for various upcoming events and assets for the Headhunters gang, which is a gang that's for Pyro. Alongside this, the concept artists explored additional ideas for the Headhunters and worked on a medical outfit and handoff sheet for a new flight suit. Okay. Art ships. Last month, Ship Art completed their work on the Tumbril Storm. Though they're currently focusing on ongoing issues with the threads, with the treads and how they appear, 2 new variants of an existing vehicle were completed too. An all-new ship progressed through White Box, revealing various areas that require updating from the concept, including an increase into the interior space. Now, this is something that bears explaining. When they say an all-new ship progressed through White Box, it's a brand new ship. It's not some secret ship that's already been sold or been mentioned in the past. It's a brand new ship. If it's something they've mentioned or they've sold, they will tell you what it is. So this is a brand new ship that is going through White Box. That probably means it's not going to be coming out anytime soon. Unless it's a very small ship, I would take several months to go from White Box to Gray Box and release. My guess would be minimum 3, probably more than that. So if it's going through White Box in art or in August, we're probably at it might be a 3.1 ship. I would say 3.1. 3.21 ship, or like a much later than that. So the Aopoa Santok Yai is almost Lot Zero complete. Final updates are underway, including polishing the pilot compartment. The damage pass is also in progress, while the rest of the Lot Zero tasks are closed out. Once complete, the team will move on to the paints. So Lot Zero is the step between LODs, like it's kind of like a gray box, and the step between the gray box and final art. So like, it's functional, it works. They're trying to make it look good and make sure everything's right. It's a step they added in the process, and it's caused them to not have to do as much work. So the Santok Yai might end up at CitizenCon, probably more like a 3.21 ship if it does, but I wouldn't be surprised if they hold it off a little bit and kind of slow boat it to the Alien Week of next year. So, and lastly, Q-Pan's gonna love this one. The Origin X1 is currently awaiting a white box review. Although significant changes to the item locations have already been made to maximize space, modeling of the gray box geometry began too. So it sounds like the Xbox One, the X1 is going to be going over some significant changes from its original design. Probably still looks the same kind of lines, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's brand new. All right. Community. August saw the return of the Ship Showdown, an annual month-long event where the community champions their favorite vehicles by sharing original creations on the community hub and social media. The community team hosted 2 contests in support of the event, rewarding the top 10 submissions from the community hub and the top 3 most creative videos on the official TikTok channel. After daily head-to-head battles between the top 16 ships, the Drake Corsair was crowned the ultimate champion of the Ship Showdown. 2 of the top 3 ships were Drake, by the way. Drake supremacy. Community also supported the free flight event, posted updates on the new player guide, and curated media on the Welcome Hub. The only downside of the Ship Showdown this year is that y'all voted for the Redeemer, which is unredeemable. No. Early August saw the conclusion of the Arlington Gang screenshot contest, where players submitted screenshots following the launch of the Mission Spotlight series. Very cool. The community team then supported Toby's 22nd anniversary alongside numerous community-driven events, including the Intergalactic Industry and Trade Fair and the Atmo Esports Flight or Flight tournament, which will conclude at live at CitizenCon 2953. With CitizenCon 2953 approaching, much of August was also spent ramping up preparations, with a focus on finalizing the details of the various presentations, venue layout design, cosplay contests, community booths, and much more. It's been 4 long years since we've had a physical CitizenCon, so whether you're joining us in Los Angeles or watching from home, we can't wait to celebrate our shared universe with you on August 21st and 22nd. Keep your eyes peeled as we're finalizing some details, and we'll share more information with you very soon. Community team. I'd love to see what's planned for the whole thing, so. The team continued to support dozens of evergreen publishers, such as this monthly report, the most Post-mortem, etc., alongside planning for a variety of future in and out of game engagements to come. Lastly, the team attended Gamescom and a trio of Bar Citizens events in Cologne, Germany. The turnout was unbelievable, eclipsing our Gamescom events in the past. We are so happy to meet so many of you, veteran backers and fresh pilots alike. We hope to see you all again soon. The one thing I will say, based off of my own performance, hi, you folks who are watching me, who've only been watching me for a couple of weeks or a couple of months now, is that there is a large amount of people who've pledged and got into Star Citizen in the last couple of years. It's insane how much higher the player base is now than it used to be. This is the new edition, which is very interesting. Economy. The new economy team planned their upcoming goals, including rebalancing cargo and related experience. They also began building a tool to investigate the current state of cargo, which could be expanded into other areas of the in-game economy. Now, I don't know what's going on, but this sounds like CIG is finally getting the economy up and running, which is a good thing. And it sounds like there's things like rebalancing cargo. This is the first time we've had an economy team post on a monthly report, which I feel like is a big one. Even though it's only a couple of sentences, that's a big addition. I don't know if this means Tony Z is part of this, if Tony Z is still involved in this sort of situation. As many people have pointed out, Tony Z is kind of radio silent recently. But for clarification, that's how Tony Z is. That's who he is. From my experiences with people who've met him, say he's a very sociable guy in small groups, but doesn't like to talk in large groups unless he's presenting and stuff like that. So I don't know if this has to do with Quanta or not. My guess is it does, but who knows? Features Arena Commander. The Arena Commander feature team polished and supported Alpha 320 while beginning stage 2 of the Arena Commander revitalization plan. Alongside patchwork, the engineering team supported a new top heads-up display, which will feature in all game modes from Alpha 320. They also assisted in the ongoing investigation of the return of theaters of war. You called me mad. All of you disbelieved me when I said that this was the year that theaters of war would come in. I disbelieved me when I said it back in January. For those who would say this day would never come, what do they say now? I don't know. It's not even out yet. It still won't come. This involved identifying the steps needed to update their new spawning module with several unique Theaters of War features, such as spawn locations and multi-crew, and bring them into other game modes. So that doesn't mean that Theaters of War is coming in 320 or in 321, but it does kind of point in the direction that, you know, has been pretty obvious, is that Theaters of War isn't dead. It's just it's dead, but it's going to come back as just part of Arena Commander rather than being its own mode. So. Work continued on the new custom lobbies feature, previously private matches, with several successful tests conducted. The team are currently focusing on finalizing the UI design and hooking up the various interactions. Engineering began restoring the spectator mode too, which will allow for players to spectate matches in custom lobbies and other modes. For example, spectating a player who has lost all their respawns in a PvE game mode. I think that's supposed to be like a player can be spectated if they lost all their respawn. Design enhanced several outlines for the upcoming updates and scouted locations from the PU and beyond for use in Arena Commander. They also began investigating the Theaters of War location Crossroads of Crime to help estimate restoration efforts. Very cool. The team also addressed a large collection of feedback from the Evocati and PTU regarding the front-end and game modes. The front-end game mode selection now shows which modes are new, which have rec multipliers, and which have achievements associated with them. Design also progressed with the spawn screen UI for in-game vehicle selection, which began internal testing. Finally, the team helped create several new game modes requested by other teams, including a 2v2 mode that will host a fight or flight at CitizenCon. Very cool. Features, characters, and weapons. August saw the characters and weapons feature team working on weapon poses. Currently, when a player approaches a collision surface, their equipped weapon is raised to avoid clipping through the geometry. It's interesting, I actually saw something fairly recently. I can't remember what I saw, but I saw a video that talked about this process where if you looked from a third-person perspective, if a player walks up to a wall, for most video games, the gun would clip through the wall. But if you look at it in first person, it doesn't actually clip. And that was one of the issues that Star Citizen had very early on when they said unifying the third and first person animations, because everything that you see the player doing in third person has to be what the player's doing in first person, and it has to be like look good together, which was a pain in the butt. Which is, for those of you who are older backers, remember the chicken problem. They solved it by chicken stabilization, where they stabilize the camera the same way that chickens stabilize their heads, and use that method. So, yeah, as chat's saying, it resulted in head bob, which they had to solve the problem with chicken stabilization. The team explored alternatives where the weapon is lowered, moved to the bottom of the first-person view, and rotated towards the body so it lies diagonally across the abdomen. This is a more natural in certain situations, limits clipping, and ensures majority of the player's view is unobscured, particularly when interacting with screens in the environment. So instead of, when we're walking like this, instead of moving up and going like that, because it's going to block most of your view, now you're going to do this, or like that. Or it kind of comes to the side and brings you down. So, procedural recoil also progressed last month to ensure that the feel of each weapon can be tweaked to make it feel unique. A large number of curves were exposed to the content creators. Me? Morph? Bored? we were exposed to weapon recoil. I don't know what they're talking about, but. These curves allow multiple layers of subtle movements and rotation to be overlaid to create a wide range of interesting results. It's a bit of a manual process and requires significant attention to detail, but it can add a lot to the personality of a weapon. Features team. Probably Mike, he's within CIG payroll. Disco. Disco. That's pretty cool. I actually don't remember hearing about procedural recoil. Maybe I just missed it or glazed over it in the past. But that's again one of those Sauron tools where it's one tool that can be used for a bunch of different things, and so that makes sense to be able to iterate on guns pretty quickly and do different types of weapons to be able to have more procedural recoil. It can be added to the gun rather than having to do bespoke animations for each gun. Features, gameplay. Gameplay features continued on their ongoing work on the vehicle tractor beam feature, readying it for testing by the QA. They also progressed with the resource network mentioned in last month's report and supported the upcoming patch release. So that's pretty big for a small number. So I'm fairly certain that vehicle tractor beams are a 3.21 feature. They've been in some major state of completion for the last 3 months. The SRV has been done for a while now. It seems like it wasn't going to be able to make it for 320 because they wanted to release 320 before CitizenCon. So instead, it's going to be a 3.21 release. Be my guess. And this is the first mention of the resource network that we've seen in a while. So, which could be mentions of the resource system, which is a ongoing system that touches literally everything in the game. Everything from your suits to your ships to every building in the game all uses this new resource system, which will enable multi-crew gameplay, but it enables a lot of other stuff too. So possibly that, though it's hard to tell exactly what that means in terms of what's being worked on. Features mission. The mission features team spent the month working through their upcoming deliverables and bug fixing for Alpha 320. Away from the upcoming patch, Siege of Orison received various improvements ahead of a future release, with the main focus being keeping players together. Development of Blockade Runner, which will replace Ninetales Lockdown, continued too, with various technical issues considered and planned for. Significant improvements were made to the existing destroyed drug stash missions to ensure mission-critical items are spawned when the player arrives. They also made great progress in modularizing the new player experience so it can be used in any landing zone with the current markup. That's something they've been working on for a while, is trying to make the new player experience work with any landing zone, so it makes it more modular, and so it's not just an Area 18. And the blockade runner is the thing that they've been talking about since last month. They talked about removing the Ninetales lockdown because they finally recognized it was the weakest of all of the events. As much as I know people hate Xenothreat now and hate Jumptown, they're still, in my mind, the best events that CIG's created. They just ran them ragged over the course of a patch cycle that was garbage, so a lot of people have negative experiences with it now. But I think this will give the most engaging experiences out of all of them. The fact that they're getting rid of the Ninetales and improving and replacing with the Blockade Runner and improving the Siege of Orison is good signs. It means that they're not just abandoning the event system, which is something that I've been worrying about for the last couple of months because it seemed like they were moving away from those systems, but maybe not. The steal evidence at Korea and retrieve consignment missions entered the polish phase, with reputation being hooked up. Work also began on ship restoration missions, which will require players to restore ships to a saleable condition. Data Heist passed another gate review and will enter internal playtesting to ensure the objectives are clear. So, steal evidence at Korea is kind of like a miniature version of the Korea heist stuff. I think you're supposed to go get a specific item to get rid of it. Retrieve consignment is one that people thought was cargo missions, but is just go to an area and find locations at a location, like find stuff at a location. Shipwreck restoration missions, which was first brought up last month, is nuts. Like, I'm surprised we haven't seen more than that. It seems like it's plugging its way through. Data Heist is one of those, and another one of those interesting ones. An internal planning test to make sure it's clear. So, the ship cargo steal/recover hauling mission has taken as far as it can go until further cargo features are developed. In the meantime, we'll make a courier version in which small items are the objective. Mission feature team. I feel like that's Luke and Elliot kind of going, like straining at the bit. Like, we want more. We want to do more. Give us your cargo. Give us your cargo. The team progressed with reputation-based hostility, devising a mission that allows players to work for the Ninetales gang. Hey, nice. Some actual outlaw mission stuff. Once completed, they'll convert most of the nameless criminal missions into Ninetales until further gangs are added. We know that there's the Nova Riders, and then there's the Dusters, and the Ninetales. And I think there's right now there's generic shipjackers, but I think there'll be all of the gangs in Star Citizen, all of the hostile criminal aspects of Star Citizen it's Stanton at least, will be unique gang members, not just random stuff. So. Code work was completed on the highlighting and filtering of mission-critical items in the inventory. This was handed to the UI for their pass. Finally, tasks for ship trespass progressed with nesting trespass being the main thing holding it back. Ship trespass is one of the kind of blanks on me. I don't think that's a mission thing, though. Could be. Features vehicle. Last month, the team assisted with bug fixing for stability for Alpha 320 and beyond, including getting the Misk Hull C ready for release and completing smaller feature work on upcoming ship releases. The designers then tuned how racing ships perform in atmosphere to bring them closer together and converted more ground vehicles to the new physics model, which allows for more realistic behavior than before. The mass of size 1, 2, and 3 items were rebalanced for better consistency across ship loadouts and to improve the tractor beam gameplay of removing and replacing items. Smaller vehicle and weapon balance tweaks were also made. Graphics, VFX programming, and planet tech. Did we skip engine? Is there no engine? I'm gonna go back up here. There's no engine. That feels weird. For those of you who don't know, we've had Engine I've had a little spiel for Engine for a very long time, and it's weird not seeing it. Anyways, it usually is before graphics, VFX, programming, and Planet Tech. So, okay, I'll do the spiel anyways. I am not an engine seer. I do not know the wills of the Omnissiah. I am not a Starfleet engineer. I cannot turn rocks into replicators. I am but me. So any of these technical aspects, especially with the graphics, VFX, programming, and Planet Tech, there tends to be some stuff there. I may not understand the jargon. You may, though, if you're an engineer or do work on these sorts of things for a living, or just a hobbyist. So please let me know in the comments below anything that I'm confused on or your thoughts on that as well. So. In August, improvements were made to the internal implementation of temporal super resolution. Further progress was made on water, with the shader gaining improved lighting and foam. Work on the simulation continued too, with foam propagation and bullet impact support being added. They've been working a lot on water, in terms of like water effects and such, for a long time. The prototype of glint shading model was completed and comes in 3 versions with different performance characters. The team are now investigating whether they can take one of these into production. Distant lights are now drawn as tiny bright glows that pass through the existing post-effect system, with the aim of replacing the more traditional composite flare system that can't support post-effects. On the tooling side, the streaming debugger was expanded and now provides a powerful tool to track the detailed history of any asset or group, to diagnose issues and facilitate optimizations. The mesh setup editor was also expanded to allow fine-grained control over how animated meshes are imported. The Vulcan subteam added new extensions, including Synchronization 2, Maintenance 4, and Timeline Semaphore, to improve various aspects of the back end. Focus is now shifting on to unblocking progress on global illumination, as the ray tracing component is Vulcan only. The VFX programming team has implemented smoke spawning on fire along with various other quality improvements to bring the feature to visually complete and rather impressive state. Finally, further improvements to lighting effects were made, which will be used in the future within gas clouds. Very cool. In-game branding. The in-game branding team continued to progress with the underground facility exteriors. They've also worked closely with the EU locations too on an upcoming event and progressed with some event-related add-ons, which is probably the IAE, surface access, the commons, the prominent. That's just all stuff from Microtech, from New Babbage. So I guess that's new. Those are new signs for New Babbage. Those look good. I like it. They're very good. Interactables. Last month saw the Interactables team create new assets for Pyro's rundown station alongside various flare items. That's probably not Ruin Station, though it could be. It's probably just the different rundown stations they have. Lighting. The lighting team continued to contribute to Pyro, working on tasks for the colonialism outposts and rundown station. They also worked on an upcoming event. That's probably just a mistranslation of Ruin Station. Live Tools. In August, the Live Tools team released a new version of the crash handling pipeline, which is now in the maintenance phase. For Hex's Network Operations Center, they worked on general navigation to improve the quality of life for its main users. This included redesigning elements of the discipline module and entity graph. Locations EU. The locations team progressed across various areas last month, including the rundown station. It's got to be a mistranslation, like German or something, and colonialism outposts for Pyro. They also worked on signage and dioramas for an upcoming event. The Organics team continued to build Pyro's planets, including foliage, while the Sandbox team moved to the new underground facilities through Greybox. So this is the exterior of the underground facilities. It's now moving through Greybox, so that's good. We were talking about that earlier, about it was mentioned last CitizenCon, and so it sounds like it's moving quite along there. So we might see some of these underground facilities probably until 4.0, but we'll see. Narrative. The narrative team continued to focus on Pyro, writing multiple missions and crafting strings to populate new locations with everything from signage to food items. In Stanton, several new mission types were worked on and improvements were made to existing content. Alongside the evergreen tasks of naming and describing various in-game items and wearables, Narrative worked with Interactables on interesting ideas for future editions. Trying to go back through that. Yeah. The Narrative design team worked on NPC behaviors for Pyro and continued to explore how to make NPC behaviors feel unique across various landing zones. On the website, several interesting pieces of lore were published, including an excerpt from Life Labor, The Secret History of First and Dynamics, Whitley's Guide to the Constellation Phoenix, and several new Galactopedia entries. The Narrative team will have a new installment of Loremakers community questions coming up soon. Woo! So don't hesitate to ask your questions in the team's dedicated Spectrum channel. I might, Lore Team, I might. It's a lot of stuff for Pyro, which makes sense, but to illuminate something that a lot of people don't realize, the lore team doesn't really get involved a lot in the game development, like the process development, except for the very beginning and the very end of the process. It's hard to tell which one is which, but I'm leaning towards the end of the process for a lot of these, though they are talking about like ideas for missions and other things like that. So it could be the the beginning of stuff. Either way, it means that they're moving towards more finalized ideas when it's coming to Pyro, not just this is a planet, but like this is where this settlement is, it's controlled by this group. That would be my guess based off of these sorts of mentions. So it's a good sign. It means that Pyro is still being worked on, but it's being more tuned in for some of these things. Online services. In August, the online service team worked towards finalizing the design and approach for upcoming several legacy backend social services to gRPC. As quality of life update, the team added new social menus with players now able to enable or disable friend requests and friend request notifications. Yes! And choose who they receive party invite notifications and currency transfers from. Yes! Updates were also made to the discipline service, which is necessary for future anti-cheat enforcement and sanction updates. Those are all really good quality of life stuff, so. R&D. In August, work on the temporal renderer mode for atmosphere and volumetric clouds continued. Various methods to rectify or reject frame history were experimented with. Furthermore, new disocclusion detection system to reject history was implemented that in Spirit is similar to the general upsampling solution. I'll try it again. Furthermore, a new disocclusion detection system to reject history was implemented that in Spirit is similar to the general upsampling solution. Whew, that's a lot of jargon. Additionally, various code was updated to work with the recent Gen 12 improvements. UI. As part of the development of Pyro, the UI team created fluff screens and converted flash animations into fluff screens. They also supported mission features on Data Heist by uplifting the screen style. And lastly, VFX. Last month, the VFX team continued their work on various Pyro locations, including some with animated machinery. So, this was a very light monthly report. A lot of stuff on Pyro, stuff they're continuing to work on with Ruin Station and other stuff like that. But the online services stuff is very nice. The being able to decide who can send you information and such. Let me go through some of this. The UGFs are in gray box. New foliage for Pyro, colonialism outposts, being worked on stuff. New interactables for Pyro. In-game branding team is working on the underground facility exteriors, and they're also working on some stuff for IAE. Smoke and fire, flare systems, whole sea stuff, new ground vehicle stuff, balancing for sizes for item sizes, lots of mission stuff, redoing Siege of Orison, blockade runner missions, which will probably end up being the thumbnail for this. Destroyed updates for the drug stash, steal evidence at Korea, receive consignment, ship restoration missions, so repair missions. That also may be on my on the thumbnail. And courier versions of this. There's just a ton of mission content stuff that they talked about. Tractor beams being tested, resource networks being worked on. We've got weapon poses, new ways of weapon poses, procedural recoil, lots of PU of arena commander stuff, including a lot of mentions of theaters of war and getting that towards that state. The new economy edition, cool stuff with the community stuff. Ships, we've got Sentok Yai, we've got a new ship that's going through White Box, 2 new variants of an existing ship were done. The Origin X1's through White Box, the Tumbril Storm is done, Headhunters Gang stuff was done, new flight suits, new animation, and a bunch of AI tech for how they kind of move in between different zones, like being able to jump out of a ship onto the ground and still move. Lots of AI features as well, with just bug fixing to make them look better and kind of function the way they're supposed to. So overall, a fairly light on most stuff, but pretty heavy on the mission stuff, gameplay stuff, and a little bit of the ships, some new ships stuff. So probably not the last light, not the last monthly report. It's going to be a little light in content, since a lot of that stuff is going to be saved for CitizenCon. But I want to know, as always, what you think in the comments below, and I want to thank you for watching. Join us live, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive to watch this and join the chat here. And like I say all the time, hope to see you someday in the black. Chick-fil-A. How you doing, Chick-fil-A? Or Click-fil-A. I thought it was Chick-fil-A. It's like, wow, hey, what's up? That's pretty good. Up-res sampling, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of question about like that's the ship restoration mission is not new. That's something they talked about last month. But basically, a ship restoration mission, as far as I can tell, is using the technology we have right now to repair ships for a quote-unquote sellable location. So my guess is, and you feel free to, I don't know if I'm completely unsuspect of that. A little bit of Florida, yes, of course, boat wrap. My guess is that what we're going to see with ship restoration missions, because it's going to take place at salvage yards, is, have you ever played those mechanic games? Like Mech Mechanic or Starship Mechanic or, Car Mechanic or Truck Mechanic or those sorts of like dime a dozen quick turnaround sort of mechanic games. My guess is that's going to be Star Citizen's version of those sorts of games, where you're given a ship, you're given tools, and you're told to fix the ship up to flight ready status and get done, and then move around. It's salvage in reverse, yeah. Thing mechanic simulator, yeah, that sort of thing. And I imagine it's going to be improved as they actually do that stuff. But it's kind of like my guess is somebody on the missions team is like me and spends way too much time on Steam looking at various games and was like, that's pretty fucking cool. We could do that in Star Citizen, and just did it in Star Citizen. I'm not even gonna lie, I can barely see what the fuck that is. Is that a Pokemon? Yes, it's a Pokemon. Among Us. Oh, I see it now. I see it now. Suddenly want to collect them all. Did I miss something about hangars? I joined the game after they were removed. So the ISC talks a lot about the difference between persistent hangars and instance hangars. How we're going to have instance hangars first, which will allow us to load up cargo from land and then get cargo and load it up to the ship. And then that'll allow for you to fly into hangar 2, the door will close, and then another ship will request landing, and hangar 2's doors will open again, but you won't be there because your hangar will be instanced on its own little version of reality. So that's effectively what that whole thing was. As per what Sand Group were saying, make 4.0 the P patch, Pyro, Pizza, Polaris, Polar Bears, Boreal Stopper inflation, Pina Coladas, and pavement roads. I don't think we're going to see roads. I think roads are going to be something they'll do as a nice, fun project while working on various like points of interest, like towns and stuff like that, after they have some of that other stuff done. I honestly don't think roads are a priority, probably for several years. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Polaris, Boreal Stalkers, more booze, that kind of thing. So, where's Spirit? Where? It's 3.20.1, I think. It's a .1 or .2 patch. I really hope for pizza, but. Damn it, stop messing with that copium. I'm huffing that. If you have any other questions while we're wrapping up, I'm going to try to get done in about 15 minutes. I will say that I may or may not be streaming tomorrow. If I do, it'll be streaming Starfield, just because I'm trying to branch out a little bit more. Saturday will be another captain's table. I still have to get people to come to the captain's table. I don't have a topic yet, but now there's a bunch of stuff here. We're going to probably talk a little bit about hangars and their implementation and stuff like that. Do you think we'll see the Maelstrom at CitizenCon? Then that's the new damage system? Probably. So no more 2-minute time limit launch and then land. So more playable landing zone experience than Elite. Two-minute time limit to launch and land. What are you talking about? Their BizaCon. Probably that's not probably. It's more like as the volume of players goes up in a region, there'll be less access to specific, like for hangars. Like there's only 12 hangars in a station, and if there are 14 people waiting for hangars, then right now you're just stuck. But as they instance them in the future, it gives players time to take cargo for missions or cargo they purchase at the station, load it onto their ships, get everything set up properly, and then leave, while also letting for new players to come join in and land in the hangars. Oh, so Vert and Darge on Saturday's Captain's Table. Vert was on last Captain's Table, so he can't come on this time. What feature do I want in 3.21? Ship-based tractor beams. That's it. Question: we are at 602 million on funding. Do you think we'll see a little thank you gift? We used to get one every 100 million milestone. And do you think we'll reach funding wise after CitizenCon? It really depends. I've stopped really like following the funding as closely, except for when, you know, I hear people being like, well, Star Citizen is going to X. I'm like, let's look at the funding. Oh, look, they've made several $1 million. But looking from instance hangars from the outside, you won't possibly be seeing like 5 ships leaving the hangar simultaneously. No, but they'll either be an ATC where you're delayed for launch, or you'll go into hangar 2 and you'll leave in hangar 1. There'll definitely be some sort of system for launching and landing, which will require some ATC work, but that's something they've been working on. How much engineering do you think we'll see at CitizenCon? Do you think we'll be able to mod, tune components, or merely repair and power routing from Tier 0? Repair and power routing. I don't think we're going to do mod and tuning in Tier 0. We're probably not going to see any of that stuff until much later. Please wait till the traffic pattern is full. Yeah. Negative, Ghost Rider. The pattern is full. With the hangars, that means no more morning runs to the Pisces in the larger hangar anymore. No. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of. I don't think we're going to see anything for the 602 million, honestly. Just because it's. I just don't see it. We've kind of gone beyond that in terms of. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love a letter from the chairman. Like, there's a lot of information that we've been denied over the last these last couple of months, that we'd like to know about. Like, what the fuck's going on with server meshing? Where the fuck is Pyro? Like, this sort of things. So, I bet your personal hangar will be the size of your largest ship that ASOP can handle. Possibly. Where's my Perseus? It's waiting in line behind the Polaris there, Omega. Probably the Polaris and the Banu Merchantman. Do you feel like they don't reach out to you as much as you'd like? I mean, you're supported the game as long as I've played, really. Me personally? No, they reach out to me all the time. Like, I got an email a couple of days ago about the pirate thing, but that's more like the events in game. I'm like, personally, I feel like I could reach out to people I know at CIG at any time and ask them. When they'll be able to tell me what they can. Sometimes, a lot of times they can't, just because they sign an NDA. They got other things they got to do. Do you think we'll see anything about the 600i and starter reworks? Nope. The starter reworks? Nope. Nothing on those two. People ask them and they'll go, haven't even started them yet. CIG extends a hand, reveals a redeemer. Yeah. I guess it'd be cool to see the AstroPub in the game. I don't know if I'd want an AstroPub in game. I wouldn't mind being put in game, but you know, that's a if CIG wants to do it. I don't want to be a special snowflake where I get to be put in the game and other people don't. I am by far not even the closest to being the most popular content creator for Star Citizen, nor will I ever be. I would settle for NPCs talking to each other in more narrative missions. I would lose my fucking mind for NPCs talking to each other in more narrative missions. It would make the game so much more immersive. I mean, the bar itself, the AstroPub, but your brand, you know. I'd like to have that on my own. I'd like to do that myself, though. You don't want to be Co-Carnage in CP? What's CP? Because that has some bad connotations there, Q-Pan. Radio Chatter would be great, too. Cyberpunk. Okay, 2077. Oh, he's in 2077? That's cool. I didn't know that. Or Burke Black in Total War Warhammer, which I found out. that Burke has is a named character in Total War Warhammer. Though it could be that Burke took his name from Warhammer, and I didn't know that. So. Those would be nice, like the Astro Gastro, or like the space bar using similar like you know, something like that. I don't know. Not cheese pizza. Oh God, no. I saw a good quote on Reddit right now. Star Citizen is not a game as much as it's an experience. In many ways, that is appropriate. As a vampire, I believe he's a vampire pirate, isn't he? An undead pirate. You know that crazy guy in Cyberpunk that's preaching? That's Ko. Oh, nice. Yeah, CIG, if you're gonna put me in the game, I either want to be in as a bartender or as someone at the Ark, like a researcher at the Ark. Radio chatter is great for like that's the one thing that Elite Dangerous does really well is radio chatter. Something like that would be a good kind of addition. I don't think you should force it on people. But I think, I do think if you leave your comms open in some way, you can have that in there. A shady bar that does some relic smuggling. That's just me. That's just my bar. But like I said, adding NPCs talking to each other goes a long way to introducing the game to be more immersive. It's one of the things that Starfield does fantastically for its immersion is like you go to New Atlantis and just people talk to each other. You'll see random events happen. It's all good. Do you think the heavily trafficked landing zones will eventually require traffic patterns? Yes. They've been working on the ATC system and been working on it a lot, the new ATC system, so almost certainly it's part of that. You should have a very opinionated Arcanist and Arc like, actually type. Also, you should wear a fedora. Sure, perfect. Radio chatter near stations and ED is nice. Yeah, I think it can get overwhelming at times. You know, those sorts of radio chatter, because you don't really have that like element in Star Citizen. But I think if you had some element of like keeping your comms open, that you can hear like local chatter around you would be cool. But I expected nothing more than we got for Starfield. I knew the exploration was going to be exactly what it was. It's not relic smuggling. It's archaeological expeditions for items that belong in the Astro wing of the British Museum. Sorry, Luna, I gotta go to bed. It's almost midnight here. I got 5 minutes here, though. It's retrieving things that belong in a museum. In my museum. I would love to see... That's the other thing. Props team, please give us more relics, more cool shit like that. And please give me someone to sell it to. There you go. That's what I'll settle. I'll settle for that, CIG. Turn me into a rare items dealer. Turn me into the collector from Guardians of the Galaxy, buying stuff, buying relics from random people. Cargo Refactor was missing from the post-mortem. Thoughts? Cargo Refactor was Cargo Refactor 318 or 319? I go through some of this as well. Put a relic shop and say Area 18 somewhere. It's been my belief. It's my belief that that the people who would buy relics in the Star Citizen universe in Stanton are Hurston. Like they just scream like they'd buy old shit. That's just their thing. So. Wait, that's a great idea. Leave comms open. You hear things and can get hacked. So you have to close your radio comms or switch to encrypted authenticated before starting combat. I don't know if I'm not looking. I don't know when the cargo rebalance was. I think the cargo rebalance was before 318. I think it was 317 when the cargo rebalance was happening. Cargo refactor. Yeah, I think it was 317 when cargo refactor happened, or 316. Yeah, I think it was 316. That was 316. Yeah, cargo refactor was 316. Let me look it up real quick. It was 318. You're right. It was a 318 update. Huh. It's interesting that it wasn't there. That being said, do you think the Hursons care about anything but themselves? No, but I do think that they like to care to hoard curiosities. Persistence was required for cargo refactor. I couldn't remember if cargo refactor dealt with what cargo refactor was. Now I remember it's actually like the snap stuff. They probably just forgot about it, honestly. Ooh. Now, Fishy, I don't think we're going to have hacking, that kind of stuff with comms, but I could see a situation where you could leave your comms open, which would then allow you to receive things like distress calls and those other things a little bit more. Because like there's something like the guard frequency where like you keep it open for National Guard, Coast Guard kind of things. There's some frequencies that happen in like modern air and naval travel, which you always have open, that you can receive messages from, but nobody fucking talks over it. Or if they do, they're not supposed to, but they do anyways. 21.5 is the guard. Okay. But I mean, like, yeah, I don't, because it would be weird to have those sorts of things, open in Star Citizen, the Star Citizen universe, and hearing people just randomly talking on that frequency, because that would be like the open frequency, right? The frequency that you'd always keep open. So. It felt like a good old-fashioned AstroPub hangout with lots of new Star Citizen news. Things were looking down for a while. Yeah, that's because we just have. It's been a fucking year. Ooh. I think we'll get back to that once CitizenCon's over with, especially if they start doing more Squadron 42. Boats Channel 16. Spaceman I noticed first going over Post-mortem. Jake Acapella still on break? Jake was in chat earlier. I know Jake is working. Why would Jake's not on break. Jake got like a 3-week vacation, but that was a while ago. You have guard frequency. Do you think we'll have transponder numbers as well then? I wouldn't be surprised if we had some sort of system like that. CIG definitely needs to take the current way that we do communications in Star Citizen and make it a little bit more mature. And I think there's gameplay opportunities in that as well. Having the right frequencies open at the right times will let you allow for you to receive distress calls or calls for other things, which will then get you missions or get you, like, you know, dynamic experiences which you wouldn't have otherwise, or that sort of thing. There's a t-shirt I want that says, "For a good time, dial 212.5. What? Jake gets vacation? Who approved that? I wonder who, Mudstoner. I don't, why would Jake be on vacation? Like, I'm looking through a lot of this. I don't see any of this stuff that would even mention that Jake's on vacation. They delayed the post-mortem for so long and still missed out the cargo refactor. I imagine the cargo refactor went well, though. I can't imagine they've done. It also could be that the people who were doing the cargo refactor were busy working with 320, because I'm sure a lot of those people are also working on the new cargo sizes and such. There seems to be there is a focus on cargo right now. Like, I know Chris Roberts said in his letter from the chairman last year that the real focus was getting cargo gameplay to be at a much better place, like kind of like the new overhaul of cargo and trading and bounty hunting, which were the big ones, the big things he wanted to hit. And it seems like that's really what they're focusing on, which is good. We really do need better cargo gameplay, because it is the crux, the spoke upon which the wheel of the universe runs. So all right. Ooh. Whoa. I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to get some sleep. I will see you all tomorrow, probably. If I do, it'll be we'll watch a little bit of ISC or SCL, and then we'll move on to Starfield. I do got to reach out and figure out if I can talk to people who want to do some citizen or some captain's table. It's going to be kind of getting harder and harder to do those sorts of things. As we get closer to CitizenCon with less and less information. And yeah, Sunday I'll probably do some 320. I'll definitely be playing Star Citizen, doing some 320. So yes, and I do have September up. So if you are wondering to enter the September monthly report, September monthly giveaway, finally it's an Avenger LTI gameplay package with the Solar Winds skin. It's given to me by CIG for this Pirate Week, so go ahead and get on that one. Yeah, thank you for hanging out, and like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. Let's find someone to raid here on Twitch. Smashly's playing. Ooh, Smashly. 11 fans doing as well. I've read a lot of Smashly recently, though. Know anybody else over here? I could raid Wasted Space, who's doing Mech Warrior 5. What's Skin Team doing? Oh, both gun. Okay.